Long Qin used his spiritual strength to express his will, causing that person's expression to completely change. Long Chen's icy face appeared in his mind. He was unable to sever Long Chen's spiritual probing. He was someone from the ancient family alliance. After learning that this divine sense belonged to Long Chen, he no longer dared to continue attacking him. Although things were tense between the ancient family alliance and the martial heaven alliance, things hadn't fully fractured yet. They weren't at war. As for this person, he was now afraid. If Long Chen charged over to him, he would definitely die. The expert stood to the side, allowing Long Chen's divine sense to continue onward. As his divine sense spread further, it encountered more and more experts. Most of them attacked. Long Chen didn't bother hiding his spiritual fluctuations, and after attacking, they all knew who the master of this divine sense was. A few of the righteous experts stopped upon learning it was Long Chen's divine sense. However, some were crazily attacking when they knew it was him. So what if you're Long Chen? You must be dreaming if you think you can cheat like this. Many experts attacked, not letting Long Chen's divine sense get past them. His divine sense was now split into thousands of strands, so there was no way for him to resist the full-strength attack of other experts. Once the strands were severed, he couldn't see any further into that path. Long Chen ignored those people and continued spreading his divine sense. He found that tens of thousands of experts had entered this giant nest. There were people from the ancient races, the corrupt path, the ancient family alliance, the Xian beasts, and all sorts of other powers. Long Chen even sensed a few powerful flame cultivators who had to come from Pill Valley. Some avoided his divine sense, but others crazily attacked it instead. Some who were skilled in the aspects of the soul even launched spiritual attacks on him, following his divine sense to strike his mind-sea. However, as soon as they tried that, Long Chen would sever that strand of divine sense, not letting them locate him. It wasn't that he was afraid of them, but that he didn't have the time to bother with them. Furthermore, with his spiritual strength spread so widely, he had lost the ability to fight with them spiritually. Fortunately, just his name was enough to frighten off quite a few experts from the ancient family alliance, and they let his divine sense pass. As for the righteous experts, over 90% let him be. Only a few irritating fellows attacked to sever his divine sense. Despite so many people blocking his divine sense, he still managed to get a general grasp of this nest. It was truly a giant, complicated maze. The people inside were like ants crawling within it. There were countless paths, and it was completely chaotic. As his divine sense continued spreading, it covered a larger and larger area. Finally, his divine sense reached an area hundreds of miles above him. There, he saw an empty space. But before he could get a clear view of this space, his heart skipped a beat. That was because he saw a giant multicolored bird currently fighting intensely. Cloud! Long Chen couldn't help letting out a shout. It was the Cloud chasing heaven-swallowing sparrow. Boom! Cloud's giant wings came crashing down with amazing power, but she was sent flying, smashing into the wall. Feathers were falling off of her body. Long Chen's heart shook. Cloud had advanced to the 10th rank, and her innate divine abilities had started to awaken, making her incredibly powerful. When she summoned her true body like this, her power was such that even Gu Yang and the others would only be able to force her back. Who was capable of making her unable to receive a single blow. Long Chen had barely managed to glance at who was in the air when a spiritual arrow pierced through his divine sense. Did you think some weak soul arts could stop me? If I didn't want you alive, you wouldn't have been able to last 3 exchanges. Long Chen heard an icy voice resound through the air. An illusory figure entered his sight, fighting a giant drake. However, when the drake opened its mouth, it emitted a piercing ray of light that blasted apart the illusory image. Long Chen saw Meng Qi slowly descend from the sky. She stood on top Cloud's head, her expression grave. Long Chen's expression changed as he withdrew his divine sense. Then, lightning wings appeared on his wings and he pushed his speed to his peak. The reason for his abrupt change in expression was because Meng Qi's opponent was the true immortal Jiaoqi of the Xian beasts. Meng Qi looked at the supreme heavenly genius of the Xian beasts gravely. In just 3 exchanges, She and Cloud had been defeated. She felt powerless. This true immortal Jiaoqi had an ancestral spirit protecting him. Her spiritual attacks were completely ineffective. As for just Cloud on her own, she was unable to defeat true immortal Jiaoqi. True immortal Jiaoqi had created a domain around them through brute force. There was no way for them to run. Cloud chasing heaven-swallowing sparrow, traitor of the Shen beasts, we let you escape last time, but this time, I'll make you live a life worse than death so that the world can see how traitors are punished, said true immortal Jiaoqi. He clasped his hands behind his back, feeling completely confident. You evil people, you are the ones who coveted our race's treasures. How dare you call us traitors? Raged Cloud. Divine light flowed around Cloud. She had entered her strongest state and was almost berserk. Her hatred for the Shen beasts was more intense than anyone. When the Shen beasts had captured her last time, they hadn't dared to initiate a soul search. The cloud-chasing heaven-swallowing sparrow race had placed restrictions on everything related to their ancestral land. That was something that had allowed them to survive while being hunted by the Shen beasts. The memories relating to their ancestral land were completely sealed. If someone forcibly conducted a soul search on them, it would cause their soul to crumble. So Cloud's secrets could only be obtained through torture. Those days of pain and despair were a time that she would never be able to forget in this lifetime. Now seeing someone from the Shen beasts, she didn't care how strong he was. She was fearless. Her hatred drove her to be almost crazy. The pain she had gone through was something that only she knew. Cloud, don't be impulsive. Long Chen's coming. We just need to stall. Meng Qi sent Cloud a spiritual message. Just now, she had sensed Long Chen's spiritual fluctuations. Although they hadn't spoken, she knew that Long Chen was aware of what was happening. For his spiritual fluctuations to suddenly vanish, it meant that he was already rushing over. The reason he hadn't said anything was because he was worried about true immortal Jiaoqi sensing it. Meng Qi knew Long Chen well. True immortal Jiaoqi, do you really think you can kill us? Meng Qi stood grandly atop Cloud's head. Her robes were snow-white. She was a peerless beauty. No. I won't kill you, at least not yet. If I kill you, I'll do it in front of Long Chen. I'll make him see his beloved woman have her head cut off right in front of him. I'm sure his expression at that time will be very marvelous. True immortal Jiaoqi smiled. His vertical eyes were icy, making him seem like a cold-blooded viper. If that's the case, then all the Shen beasts will be annihilated by Long Chen. Meng Qi smiled lightly. Despite it being a cold smile, it still made her seem like a flower blooming. I don't have time to waste. Xie Luo has also entered the nest. Once I kill you, I'll be taking the treasures here and then continuing onward. I can already sense that the true treasure is above. True immortal Jiaoqi's manifestation slowly appeared. The image of a drake appeared, its aura growing stronger and stronger. Meng Qi suddenly found difficult to breathe as she was a soul cultivator with a weak physical body. If it weren't for Cloud helping her, she would have long since been unable to resist. She might have even been crushed by this pressure. You don't even know what kind of nest this is, nor do you know what that ancient pool behind you is. I guarantee that if you were to touch the water in that pool, this marrow cleansing pool would immediately crumble. You wouldn't obtain anything, said Meng Qi confidently. The pool that she spoke of was at the core of this large space. There were 8 entrances to this area. In other words, of the thousands of channels here, only 8 led here. The pool itself was almost dried up. Only at the center was there a 3-meter deep and 30-meter long pool of water. There was some kind of almost gelatin-like fluid within the water, and it contained the aura of primal chaos. It was definitely a treasure. Meng Qi and true immortal Jiaoqi had noticed this place at the same time. This had naturally resulted in a bitter fight between the two of them. Regretfully, with her spiritual attacks having zero effect, Meng Qi was at an absolute disadvantage. She was forced into desperate straits by true immortal Jiaoqi. When Meng Qi said that this was a marrow cleansing pool, true immortal Jiaoqi's pupils narrowed slightly. Meng Qi was a beast tamer and knew even more than him when it came to magical beasts and Shen beasts. Don't think you can trick me. True immortal Jiaoqi suddenly sneered. He extended a hand, and his palm became covered by Drake's scales. A giant palm image filled this space, smashing toward Meng Qi. This was a powerful divine item, and in front of it, even clouds seemed minuscule. The power behind this one palm caused the entire nest to shake. Boom! Cloud opened its mouth. A black thread of light shot out like a divine sword, but it shattered upon contact with that palm. You might be from the heaven-swallowing race, but your bloodline is impure. You're unable to unleash the full power of your divine abilities. Accept your fates. True immortal Jiaoqi smiled coldly. The heaven-swallowing race's divine abilities were frightening, but Cloud's bloodline was too impure to unleash their full potential. The difference between his bloodline power and hers was like the difference between heaven and earth. Just as the giant palm was about to capture Meng Qi and Cloud, a streak of lightning appeared in front of them. A giant golden dragon tooth stabbed into the giant palm. Golden light erupted as the dragon tooth stabbed into the huge palm. It instantly pierced through and continued toward true immortal Jiaoqi. The sudden change made his expression change. The dragon tooth was as sharp as a sword, and an evil aura came from it that made his hair stand on end. Bang! Golden light illuminated this space. It was as if everything had been turned golden. Golden scales had appeared on top of true immortal Jiaoqi's fist. It was unknown what divine ability he had used, however, some of those golden scales had cracked, and a bit of blood leaked out. He was slightly injured. True immortal Jiaoqi shook his hand. He stared at a black-robed figure that slowly revealed itself as the golden light faded. He was carrying a very strange golden bone sword. Long Chen. True immortal Jiaoqi smiled cruelly. I didn't expect you to send yourself straight to me. Good, very good. Long Chen coldly stared at true immortal Jiaoqi, but in truth he was filled with shock. True immortal Jiaoqi was truly powerful. Those golden scales emitted immense pressure, and their aura was very similar to Long Chen's dragon scales when he activated the green dragon battle armor. Moreover, the golden scales were even stronger since true immortal Jiaoqi was able to receive the dragon tooth barehanded. That meant true immortal Jiaoqi didn't just possess great defense but also shocking power. It was no wonder Qi Fengxue had repeatedly advised Long Chen not to come here. I also feel like it's very good. We can save time and fight to the death here. Long Chen's divine ring appeared, and dragon scales covered his body as he directly summoned the green dragon battle armor. The dragon tooth unleashed a wave of golden light as he slashed it at true immortal Jiaoqi. When it comes to power, you aren't even close to my match. True immortal Jiaoqi sneered as golden scales covered his entire body. His 10-meter body looked like it was made of gold. After that, he directly smashed his fist at the dragon tooth. Boom! His giant fist was like a huge mountain. A massive chi wave erupted, knocking Long Chen back. It took him 5 steps to stabilize himself after being knocked back. However, true immortal Jiaoqi was still standing in his original location. He wasn't affected in the slightest. Power is the forte of the Xian beasts. You humans are ants in front of us. Do you know how laughable you are in front of me? Sneered true immortal Jiaoqi. He suddenly shot forward. All the scales on his body lit up as the power of his blood qi erupted. He unleashed a raging punch, one even more terrifying than his last punch. Long Chen slashed the dragon tooth 3 times, unleashing 3 waves of golden light. Insignificant. Long Chen, you aren't fit to be my opponent. True immortal Jiaoqi ignored Long Chen's attacks. His fist continued onward. 3 explosive sounds rang out. Long Chen's attacks all exploded when they struck true immortal Jiaoqi's fist. Golden light drowned this space. How disappointing. Long Chen, if this is all you have, you've really let me down. True immortal Jiaoqi suddenly switched to his other fist. Although his punch had broken Long Chen's attacks, those attacks had exhausted 30% of its power. That wasn't enough to pose a fatal danger to Long Chen. He thought that since Long Chen didn't dare to directly receive his punch, he was trying to weaken it first before receiving it. Did Long Chen not realize that he had another fist? Weakening his attack like this might be skillful, but it was a joke. He had heard that Long Chen was brave, but now he felt him to be a rabbit. True immortal Jiaoqi, you shouldn't always only look at the surface, otherwise, you'll suffer sooner or later. Your power is alright, but your head's not very good. Countless rays of light suddenly shot out of the dragon tooth, slashing at true immortal Jiaoqi. At the same time, Long Chen retreated, refusing to face him head-on. You're trying to provoke me? How childish. True immortal Jiaoqi was unstoppable with just his 2 fists. All of Long Chen's attacks were smashed apart. Just as he was smashing apart the golden rays, he suddenly realized something was off. Everything around him was drowned out by golden light. He couldn't see past it. Damn it. True immortal Jiaoqi suddenly had a thought. He turned back, and as expected, he saw Meng Qi within the Marrow cleansing pool. By that time, the strange fluid within it had already vanished. True immortal Jiaoqi let out a furious howl. He realized that Long Chen's attacks had just been to draw his attention away so that Meng Qi could take the treasure. He had actually fallen for it. He had just shifted his attention to attack Meng Qi when the space behind him shook. A sensation of mortal danger rose in his heart, and he hastily looked back. He saw Long Chen holding a cyan brick and smashing it toward him. It quickly transformed to become gigantic. What? True immortal Jiaoqi didn't have time to react after having his attention focused on Meng Qi. All he could do was raise his arms above his head to block it. As a result, the heaven-flipping seal smashed into him directly. True immortal Jiaoqi shot off like a shooting star, smashing into the ground. The ground was made of the bones of terrifying magical beasts, so it was incredibly tough. As a result, true immortal Jiaoqi didn't even leave a mark on the ground before he bounced and flew even further, tumbling through the air. This impact caused the injury that Long Chen had given him to worsen. His fury immediately soared. He had actually been schemed against by Long Chen, and he had fallen for it. Moreover, Meng Qi had taken the treasure in this space. He now thought back to what Long Chen had just said. True immortal Jiaoqi, you shouldn't always look only at the surface, otherwise, you'll suffer sooner or later. Your power is alright, but your head's not very good. He almost went crazy with rage. He crawled to his feet with a furious roar, looking all around. After that, he coughed up a mouthful of blood when he noticed that Long Chen, Meng Qi, and Cloud had already vanished. This room was empty. You bastard Long Chen, pray you don't fall into my hands. True immortal Jiaoqi's furious roar shook the room. All of a sudden, his spiritual strength surged out through the 8 passageways leading to this world. He quickly managed to locate Long Chen and Meng Qi standing on Cloud's back. They were rapidly flying away. The instant his divine sense found them, Meng Qi flung out an arm. A spiritual arrow shot out. Bang! The spiritual arrow exploded through the channel. Countless soul runes appeared and charged into true immortal Jiaoqi's mind sea. Fuck! True immortal Jiaoqi clutched his head. He had no idea what magical art Meng Qi had used, but those soul runes had managed to follow his spiritual strength back to his mind sea. The Xian beasts did not specialize in spiritual strength, so his spiritual strength was weak. If it weren't for the protection of his ancestral soul, which had helped him block Meng Qi's spiritual attacks, Meng Qi and Cloud together would have managed to crush him. However, in his fury, he had sent his own spiritual strength out, allowing Meng Qi to strike back at him. True immortal Jiaoqi smashed the ground in his anger. Killing intent surged in his eyes. The spiritual strength he had sent out had been separated from him. It was equivalent to having his soul torn apart. However, there had been no way around this. If he had allowed Meng Qi's attack to fully invade his mind sea, he would have been powerless to do anything. His ancestral soul would only be able to slowly suppress her power, which would just waste his time. He was forced to sever the spiritual strength he had sent out. He shot into motion, chasing after them. Long Chen and Meng Qi stood on Cloud's back. Cloud had shrunk to just 30 meters, allowing her to nimbly fly through this cave system. Unfortunately, there were too many twists and turns. Cloud was unable to use her full speed like that. Long Chen had his hands pressed against the back of Meng Qi's head. He was giving his spiritual strength to her. Meng Qi's own divine sense was rapidly spreading throughout the cave system. Her spiritual arts were practically divine. She was 10 times faster than him at this, and her precise control allowed her to brush her divine sense past some experts without them even noticing. With the support of Long Chen's spiritual strength, Meng Qi quickly scanned the nest. She immediately found another large room like the one that they had been in. It was directly above that room. The two of them weren't that far apart physically, but the winding channels meant that it would take a while to reach it. It's him! She had just noticed the second room when she also noticed a figure wrapped in a sinister and bloody air. When her divine sense reached him, that person suddenly raised his head, revealing a face like a desiccated corpse. He opened his mouth, and a blood arrow shot out at Meng Qi's spiritual strength. Bang! Meng Qi reacted quickly. Her spiritual strength quickly retreated, curling away from that person's attack. That blood arrow ended up striking the bone wall. A web of blood strands appeared on the wall and rapidly spread in every direction. "What terrifying curse energy!" exclaimed Meng Qi. "It seems he's the corrupt path's supreme expert, Xie Luo," said Long Chen somewhat gravely. This man was definitely an extremely terrifying existence. This Xie Luo gave Long Chen a feeling of great danger. That feeling was even greater than what he felt from true immortal Jiaoqi. No wonder Qi Fengxue said that Xie Luo's power should be even greater than Ling Yuan's. He's definitely powerful. Xie Luo was surrounded by an evil air like a fiend from hell. The curse power he had just released gave Meng Qi goosebumps. I encountered this person before. He unleashed an evil technique, killing a large mass of experts. Back then, only myself and an expert from the Xian beasts managed to escape. I had my spiritual strength and cloud speed, allowing me to escape. But that Xian beast expert was struck by Xie Luo's bone needle. He then used his brute power to charge back into the misty region, said Meng Qi. The evil spiritual art that Xie Luo had used back then had paralyzed people's souls. Although Meng Qi didn't fear any soul art, Xie Luo's soul energy contained a terrifying curse energy that she couldn't touch. Hence, she had been forced to run. She hadn't expected him to have directly charged into the second level. He's very crafty. He probably noticed true immortal Jiaoqi on the first level, so he gave up on the first level to get the second level's treasure. Now what? Asked Meng Qi. Their smartest decision would be to retreat now. Just true immortal Jiaoqi was so powerful. If this terrifying overlord of the corrupt path was added into the mix, Meng Qi and Long Chen would be pincered between them. Naturally, we have to fight over the treasures. Who cares who they are? Even if they were Yama kings, they wouldn't be able to snatch away my treasures. Long Chen started pulling Meng Qi forward, but he suddenly stopped. This is no good. We won't get there in time. Long Chen had stopped because he found that with Xie Luo's head start, if they continued down this channel, Xie Luo would definitely get the treasure first. Both of you get back. Cloud, protect Meng Qi. Long Chen suddenly unleashed his divine ring, and his spiritual strength burst forth. One of the dragon teeth appeared in his hands, and this time, it actually let out a majestic dragon roar. It unleashed a giant pillar of light that stabbed into the wall. This time, Long Chen was unleashing the full power of the dragon tooth. The sturdy wall was pierced through, revealing another channel. But suddenly, another dragon roar came from the dragon tooth. It actually slashed toward Long Chen. I just knew you would rebel. Long Chen sneered and circulated his spiritual strength. The slave seal on it lit up, suppressing it. However, now that the dragon tooth's power had been fully activated, the will within it had also been woken. It was fighting intensely against the slave seal, and the suppression was taking effect very slowly. Let me help. Meng Qi formed hand seals, and her spiritual strength merged with Long Chen's. She was the true soul cultivator, and with her skill, the two of them instantly sealed the dragon tooth. Long Chen put away the dragon tooth. Inside, he was quite stunned. No wonder Evil Moon had said that the metal-devouring evil dragon's teeth were their most precious treasures. This one attack proved that Evil Moon was correct. The dragon teeth were incredibly powerful. In order to maintain their full divine nature, Long Chen had no choice but to slowly grind away the will within the teeth. He couldn't use the primal chaos space to completely suppress it. If he did, then a portion of its divine nature would be erased as well. They would be dead objects. Their power would sharply drop. Although right now he couldn't use their full power, they could still unleash their maximum power if he was careful. Long Chen, you open a path. I'll help you to fully refine this dragon tooth. Meng Qi suddenly wrapped her arms around Long Chen. Her spiritual strength flowed into his mind sea. Their spiritual strengths merged together. She was sacrificing a large amount of her spiritual strength to help Long Chen quickly refine the dragon tooth. She had personally seen how powerful this dragon tooth was. If she could help Long Chen fully refine it, Long Chen would be in command of an absolutely amazing divine item. Originally, Long Chen had wanted her not to sacrifice so much spiritual strength. Although she was a soul cultivator, this was still a huge amount of energy to her. But when he thought about it, there would be an immense battle soon. For him to obtain a good weapon for it was too important. Cloud brought them flying forward. After half an incense stick's worth of time, Meng Qi sighed and released Long Chen. Her face was slightly pale and covered in sweat. She was exhausted, but she smiled. In just that short time, she had used up a full 70% of her spiritual strength, while Long Chen had also used up 40% of his. Any more spiritual strength and Meng Qi's power would have been gravely affected, so she had been forced to draw on some of Long Chen's spiritual strength. With her precise control, the dragon tooth's will had been fully erased. Now there was no chance of it rebelling when he used it. It would listen to Long Chen's orders. However, while it had reached the point that it was subservient, to reach the point where it would fully cooperate with Long Chen to unleash the greatest possible power would take much longer. He would need to slowly nourish its item spirit. Only then could he unleash the dragon tooth's full potential. At this time, Cloud arrived in a large palace. This palace made Meng Qi let out a startled cry. At the center of this palace was a giant stone mountain. There were beautiful feathers growing out of the stone mountain. Each feather was 30 meters long with a gorgeous blue color. There was a spirituality within the blue light that made the feathers look dreamlike. Although Long Chen didn't recognize what these feathers were, he knew that each of them was an absolute treasure. These feathers were emitting the terrifying aura of 12th rank magical beasts. Hence, their owner had definitely reached the 12th rank. These are blue-eye true feathers. Yes, they must be the true feathers of the ancient beast, the blue-eye peacock. Exclaimed Meng Qi. Who cares about blue eyes? Hurry and take them. I'll stall him. Once you gather them, we have to hurry onward. There's definitely more treasure. After saying that, Long Chen summoned lightning wings and charged toward an opposing channel. As soon as he entered it, he raised his hand. A golden flame sphere was born. Boom. Before it was fully grown, he prematurely launched it, making it explode through the channel. The golden flames ignited the entire channel. From within the golden flames, a blood-colored hand appeared, brushing aside the flames and revealing a withered figure. This person was very tall but as skinny as a withered corpse. His hand looked like withered bamboo, but it was the bright scarlet color of blood. He was surrounded by a terrifying blood qi. He was Xieluo. His eyes were very deep-set and almost dried up. However, there was an icy light within them. He had just brushed aside Long Chen's flame rampart when an even more dazzling light appeared. A dragon tooth roared toward him. Seeing that dragon tooth, Xieluo didn't dodge. His withered hand raised, and just as the dragon tooth was about to pierce his hand, a black rune appeared on it. That rune twisted and wriggled as if it was alive. At the same time, an illusory blood figure appeared behind Xieluo. It superimposed with him, and it also sent a palm forward, mimicking his movements. Boom! Xieluo was blown back a dozen meters, but the dragon tooth was also sent flying. Long Chen had to catch it. When he caught it, his expression changed. The dragon tooth had actually been infected by black qi that was rapidly spreading. He's even able to curse an item spirit. Long Chen jumped in shock. Xieluo had actually transmitted curse energy into the dragon tooth in that one instant of contact. And that wasn't all. The curse energy was now spreading to him. Long Chen raised a hand. Lightning flashed, forcing out black curse runes from the dragon tooth. They began to melt like snow in boiling water. The curse energy was quickly cleansed. Thunder force circulated behind Long Chen, forming giant waves. A lightning sea filled this channel. Long Chen once more went to block Xie Luo with the dragon tooth, wielding it like a sword. Long Chen. Xie Luo narrowed his eyes slowly. His mouth moved. Most likely, it was supposed to be a smile, but his skin was taut against his bones. He couldn't smile. That appearance was hair-raising. Good, your corpse will be an excellent addition to my collection. Become my corpse king. Xie Luo's voice was as painful to listen to as iron scraping against itself. The illusory figure behind him suddenly waved a hand, its aura growing wildly. Millions of bone lances shot toward Long Chen. Those bone lances were small, only a foot long. Rather than calling them bone lances, they should be called large bone needles. Each one of them was completely covered in countless black runes. Those bone needles rained down on Long Chen. There was no way for him to dodge so many of them. Watch out, Long Chen. Those bone needles are a combination of a physical attack and a spiritual attack. Just blocking one is useless. Meng Qi's voice transmitted into his mind. Boom. Long Chen repeatedly swung the dragon tooth, blasting the bone needles into bone powder. However, that bone powder wasn't really bone powder. Instead, those broken pieces transformed into smaller needles. Meng Qi was busy gathering the blue-eye true feathers, the strongest feathers of the blue-eye peacock, a 12th rank magical beast. Those true feathers were where its life's cultivation base and divine abilities were gathered. As for that rock they were inserted in, it had caused them to enter a slumbering state. Meng Qi was using up a huge amount of spiritual strength to gather them without waking them up. If she hadn't helped Long Chen refine the dragon tooth before, she would have it much easier. But now she wasn't capable of moving that quickly. There were a total of 999 true feathers. Just as she gathered the last true feather, she saw the endless bone needles. She couldn't help letting out a cry. Back when she had previously encountered Xie Luo, there had only been thousands of bone needles, and each one of them had been terrifying. She had been forced to use her spiritual strength to slow them down and flee, relying on cloud speed. Even one of the strongest Xian beast experts to enter here had been injured after using a divine ability to attack the bone needles. With his powerful physical body, he had barely managed to flee. The most terrifying aspect of Xie Luo's bone needles was that they were a combination of a physical and spiritual attack. When one of the bone needles exploded, it unleashed another spiritual and physical attack. There was no way to dodge. The curse energy on the bone needles would cause a person to instantly become absent-minded. In a fight against experts, that one instant was the difference between life and death. Meng Qi had some regrets now about coming here. She hadn't managed to fully describe just how powerful Xie Luo was to Long Chen. Now they were in trouble. Suddenly, the roar of a dragon shook this room. A wild lightning dragon coiled around Long Chen, protecting Long Chen from the endless bone needles. Those bone needles exploded upon contact with Lei Long's body. Both their spiritual and physical aspects were blown apart. It was only the larger foot-long bone needles that Long Chen hadn't previously destroyed that didn't immediately explode. Instead, when they stabbed into Lei Long's body, they started to crack. Xie Luo's expression changed. He had never encountered such a powerful thunder force. His unstoppable bone needles had met their bane. Long Chen's thunder force was no longer ordinary lightning. It contained a trace of divine power. The curse energy on the bone needles might not be afraid of ordinary lightning, but in front of divine lightning, there was no way for it to resist. Xie Luo snorted coldly. A blood-colored curved saber appeared in his hand, and a sinister aura erupted out of it as though millions of ghouls were wailing. This was a terrifying evil weapon. Its murderous aura was not inferior to Evil Moon. The blood-red saber fell, unleashing a blood moon that slashed toward Lei Long. Lei Long instantly exploded. Even it was unable to block that blood-red saber. However, as it exploded, it unleashed countless sparks. When those sparks faded, Long Chen had already vanished. Bastard! He actually ran. Xie Luo's expression was grim. He had no idea when Long Chen had escaped. Long Chen had used the lightning dragon to draw Xie Luo's attention while he himself left. Considering the divine nature of Long Chen's thunder force, it was impossible to probe beyond it spiritually. So after Long Chen had been wrapped around by the lightning dragon, Xie Luo had lost his ability to sense Long Chen's existence. He had taken out such a powerful trump card, but Long Chen had fled an unknown time ago. He was infuriated. Fuck, this bastard's definitely going to the 3rd floor. Xie Luo's expression suddenly changed. He thought of the crux of the problem. An expert on Long Chen's level wouldn't choose to flee. Fleeing was equivalent to accepting that he had been defeated. Perhaps it might be nothing to others, but for peerless experts, a single defeat could be a fatal blow to their Dao hearts. Of course, if he had other reasons, as long as those reasons were strong enough, running wouldn't affect him at all, let the lone cause a heart devil. Boom. Suddenly, the ground collapsed, and a large figure charged out. It was true immortal Jiaoqi who had previously been thrown off by Long Chen. Because his spiritual strength wasn't powerful, even if no one blocked his divine sense, he was unable to cover the entire nest instantly. All he could do was probe the channels as he flew. There he had noticed the palace on the 2nd level, and he had seen Meng Qi gathering the blue-eye true feathers. In order to fight over them, he had charged his way through the walls. His body was covered in Qilin scales now, and he had summoned a halberd. It was something created from a Qilin horn. The tough walls were broken through one by one. However, he was still one step too late. Long Chen and Meng Qi had already run off. Trash. True immortal Jiaoqi glanced at Xie Luo disdainfully. He suddenly charged to the roof, stabbing the Qilin halberd above him. Boom. The roof was pierced through, revealing a channel. The area above the palace on the 2nd floor was also filled with channels. True immortal Jiaoqi no longer had the patience to search for the right path. He was using up a great deal of energy to charge through with berserk force. A glint of killing intent appeared in Xie Luo's eyes, but he controlled his anger. His lips curled in disdain. He saw that true immortal Jiaoqi was just charging up with brute power. He wasn't choosing the correct channels. Boom! Xie Luo's blood-red blade also slashed up at the roof. He charged into a channel. Long Chen was pulling Meng Qi as he flew onward. Meng Qi had already sent Cloud back into her spiritual space. These channels were growing narrower as they went, and Cloud was unable to show off her speed in these channels. Because of it, Long Chen was faster. Damn, they're both getting serious. Long Chen could hear the explosive sounds coming from below. When his divine sense reached out, he saw the two of them breaking through the walls with brute force. Their efficiency was quite shocking. Long Chen, maybe we should leave? We've got the Marrow cleansing essence which can help Cloud reforge her skeleton and greatly upgrade her potential. As for the blue-eye true feathers, they're an even more priceless treasure. Each one of the feathers was the strongest true feather of a 12th rank blue-eye peacock. Once I refine them, I'll be strong enough to protect myself against even the strongest opponents. We don't need to take any more risks, said Meng Qi. Due to gathering the blue-eye true feathers and refining the dragon tooth, Meng Qi had used up a great deal of her spiritual strength. She was almost exhausted. Right now, Long Chen was slowly transmitting some of his own spiritual strength to her. That would affect his own combat power. Two of their strongest enemies were right below, chasing them. If Long Chen continued to compete with them over the next treasure, things would be even more dangerous. Don't worry, let's first see what the treasure is. If it's suitable, we have to take it. If it's not, we'll destroy it. Long Chen smiled sinisterly. If he couldn't obtain the treasure, no one else could, especially not those two. But Meng Qi felt a bit guilty. Her strongest aspect, her spiritual strength, was completely suppressed by the two of them, so she couldn't help. It's fine, I can handle them. If I want to get through, no one in this world will be able to stop me. Trust me. Long Chen tightened his arm around Meng Qi's waist, helping her to be at ease. He had his own trump cards, and he wasn't afraid. Seeing his smile, Meng Qi felt comforted. Long Chen had changed over the years, but that smile hadn't changed. Stay behind me and summon Cloud. It's about time. We can't let them catch up. Long Chen suddenly summoned the dragon tooth again. It smashed into the wall. This time, Long Chen was also going all out. The dragon tooth forcibly made its own channel through the nest. He had no choice because he could see that idiot true immortal Jiaoqi charging straight through the walls. Although that idiot was facing constant obstructions, his speed was actually quite quick. As for Xie Luo, he avoided the thicker walls, saving him a great deal of energy. Although Long Chen had moved first, true immortal Jiaoqi was actually reaching the target more quickly. With his divine sense, Long Chen managed to sense a giant platform up above. However, that platform had some kind of terrifying pressure that was blocking his divine sense from seeing anything more. He had no idea what was up there. When he tried to force it, his soul twinged and a grave feeling of danger appeared. He hastily retracted his divine sense then. Long Chen was sure that there was a priceless treasure on the platform above. He poured his spiritual strength into the dragon tooth, fully activating its runes. Fortunately, the dragon tooth was incredibly sharp. Piercing through these walls wasn't too difficult for it. It was all thanks to Meng Qi helping him fully refine it, or there was no way he could activate it like this. Finally, he broke through the final barrier. The passageway brightened. It was like there was a sun illuminating this space. He found that the third level was actually the top of the nest. He didn't even know how high up they were. Illuminated by the constant sunlight of the yin-yang world was a massive figure. A blue-eye peacock. Seeing that massive figure, Meng Qi let out a startled cry. It was a giant peacock dozens of miles tall, completely covered in bright feathers. A beautiful light still came from it, yet that mighty and sacred aura also contained a ferocious nature. It's a corpse. Long Chen recognized it as the corpse of a 12th-rank magical beast. Its corpse was still fully intact. It had a pair of blue eyes that still seemed to contain life in them. Meng Qi, bring Cloud to that blood pool. Long Chen suddenly noticed a giant blood pool ahead with immense blood qi within it. Its fluctuations were practically identical to the pressure of the blue-eye peacock. From that, it could be assumed that the blood pool was created from the blue-eye peacock's essence blood. Long Chen had no time to think why the corpse and essence blood were located at separate sides of the platform. It didn't make sense why they were so far apart. However, even if it didn't make sense, there was no time to consider it. Meng Qi and Cloud flew off to the blood pool, while Long Chen went to the blue-eye peacock. Just as he moved, he noticed intense spatial fluctuations in the distance. That place formed a perfect triangle with the blue-eye peacock's corpse and the blood pool. Long Chen could vaguely see a single feather within that twisted space. Is that this blue-eye peacock's true feather? Long Chen suddenly changed plans. He charged toward that twisted space. Boom, boom. Just at this moment, two figures charged out of the ground. Both of them immediately noticed the giant blue-eye peacock's corpse. This corpse is mine. Xie Luo's eyes immediately lit up, and he charged over. True immortal Jiaoqi sneered and was about to fight over it with him when he glanced toward the distance. When he saw the blood pool, his pupils shrank. Get away from the essence blood and I'll spare your lives. True immortal Jiaoqi immediately switched targets. He saw that this blood pool contained concentrated essence blood. The blue-eye peacock was a beast from ancient times, and it was known for being cruel-natured and slaughtering countless life forms. In that time, it was capable of swallowing a whole city's life forms in one gulp. The blue-eye peacock existed only in legend in the Martial Heaven continent, so seeing it personally was shocking. The purity of an ancient blue-eye peacock's blood essence had to be amazing. To a Xian beast, a single drop of that blood was a priceless treasure. Seeing the whole pool, true immortal Jiaoqi was ecstatic. However, he was infuriated to see that Cloud had a head start. He charged over, having no interest in what direction Long Chen was going. That essence blood was a must-have for him. Cloud summoned her giant true body. Opening her mouth, she swallowed the pool of essence blood in one gulp, not leaving even a single drop behind. If other magical beasts or Xian beasts tried to devour the essence blood like this, they would instantly explode. However, Cloud possessed the heaven-swallowing divine ability. This essence blood wasn't instantly digested or refined. Instead, it was stored in a separate space. Furthermore, there was a certain bloodline connection between the blue-eye peacock and the cloud-chasing heaven-swallowing sparrow. Legend was that they were both descendants of the ancient phoenix. So Cloud was not attacked by the essence blood. Seeing this, true immortal Jiaoqi let out a furious roar. For him, wanting to gather that essence blood would definitely cause it to fight back. If it had fought back against Cloud like that, he was confident in being able to obtain the majority of it. However, now all of it had been taken by Cloud in an instant. True immortal Jiaoqi became anxious. His drake illusory figure appeared behind him. He had to kill Cloud to get that essence blood back. If he had the assistance of the essence blood of this ancient beast, he could fully stimulate his bloodline, multiplying the power of his divine abilities. Then he would be able to dominate the land. Run! Long Chen sent Meng Qi a message. As soon as he had come up here, he had noticed that there was a mysterious barrier protecting the exterior of this giant nest. To enter here, you had to walk up the levels of the nest one by one. If you tried to fly up directly, you would be blocked by the barrier. Furthermore, flying to this height was impossible. You would be cut down by the spatial winds at this height. But what about you? Asked Meng Qi worriedly. Don't bother with me. You go first. I have my own way to leave. We can meet where we agreed afterward, responded Long Chen. He had already reached the twisted space. He was standing in front of a long divine feather. Meng Qi looked from Long Chen to the furious true immortal Jiaoqi. Clenching her teeth, she had Cloud run. Cloud spread her wings. A golden light shot from her mouth. Boom. The exterior had looked calm, but when Cloud's attack flew out, it struck something and shattered into a million pieces. A giant barrier appeared in the sky, covering the entire nest. Fools, this nest is protected by a formation. You won't be able to escape. If you're smart, you'll immediately hand over the blue-eye peacock's essence blood. Roared true immortal Jiaoqi. In just a few more seconds, he would be able to reach Cloud. He couldn't be the slightest bit careless at this moment. Other than him, there was also Long Chen and Xie Luo present. Xie Luo was currently trying to gather the corpse, but the blue-eye peacock's corpse was shining brightly, and Xie Luo was having trouble approaching it. He was unleashing his full power just to gather it. If Xie Luo obtained the corpse while Long Chen obtained the feather, then their next move would be to come here. Long Chen would protect Meng Qi, while Xie Luo would also fight against him over the essence blood. So true immortal Jiaoqi had to get the essence blood right this instant. Cloud didn't panic at all upon seeing her attack shatter. Instead, she sent a message to Long Chen. Big brother Long Chen, be careful. But suddenly, all of Cloud's feathers blazed with light. She opened her mouth, shooting out a black circle. When that circle appeared, the world dimmed. Damn it, it's the heaven-swallowing void breaker. True immortal Jiaoqi cursed. He suddenly raised the Qilin halberd. Attacking at this distance would definitely cause the attack power to drop and make it easier to dodge, but he had no choice. A giant halberd image appeared in the sky, slashing down at Cloud. However, true immortal Jiaoqi was still just slightly too slow. The black circle that Cloud had spat out struck the barrier, causing a black ripple to spread. It formed a giant fluctuating gate. Cloud and Meng Qi charged through that fluctuating gate. It was like they had entered water, and they vanished just like that. Once they vanished, the barrier returned to normal. True immortal Jiaoqi's attack struck the barrier, but his attack didn't cause the slightest ripple. Damn it! True immortal Jiaoqi roared. He clenched his teeth furiously. This barrier was too powerful to break. However, the cloud-chasing heaven-swallowing sparrow race had a very monstrous innate divine ability that could construct a spatial channel. The spatial channel couldn't lead very far, at most a few hundred miles, but it could cause a space-time displacement, allowing Cloud to slip past normal restrictions. No ordinary barriers were able to hold her. This was also another reason why the cloud-chasing heaven-swallowing sparrows were able to continue surviving in the outside world despite being surrounded several times. This kind of divine ability was something only those at the 11th rank were capable of using, and yet Cloud had used it at the 10th rank. Suddenly, rumbling sounds rang out. In the distance, Long Chen had a twisting spatial portal open behind him. The giant feather was currently entering the spatial portal. Bastard, once I capture you, they'll be forced to hand over the essence blood. True immortal Jiaoqi suddenly charged at Long Chen. Long Chen was busy gathering the feather, but it possessed its own terrifying will. Long Chen had also used up too much of his spiritual strength, resulting in him feeling even greater pressure. Fortunately, his will was strong enough. The divine ring rumbled. No matter how ferocious the master of the feather had been while they had been alive, this feather still had to submit in front of Long Chen's will. Even though the feather itself knew it had no choice, it was still fighting back. Fuck, so you refuse to give me face? Long Chen roared. He gave up pulling it into his spiritual space. Instead, a large black hole appeared behind his back. When that black hole appeared, the feather immediately stopped resisting. It quivered in terror, allowing Long Chen to put it away instantly. Once it was pulled into the primal chaos space, it didn't dare to move. It didn't even dare to release its aura. Originally, Long Chen hadn't wanted to pull the feather into the primal chaos space. That was because even he couldn't control the primal chaos space. For example, when he had subdued the dragon teeth, he hadn't pulled them into the primal chaos space. While he was the master of the primal chaos space, he couldn't control it. Anything that dared to go against his will would be annihilated by the primal chaos bead. The primal chaos bead had its own will, and it wasn't something that Long Chen could control. If the feather had continued resisting, the primal chaos bead would have destroyed it, wasting this treasure. If he hadn't been pressed for time by true immortal Jiaoqi, Long Chen wouldn't have taken this risk. However, things had worked out. As soon as the primal chaos bead revealed its power, the feather immediately turned still. Brother Xie Luo, I'm done, but you're not. Let me come help you. Long Chen laughed. Ignoring the furious true immortal Jiaoqi, he charged at Xie Luo, or more accurately, the blue-eye peacock's corpse. Xie Luo was doing his best to gather the corpse of the blue-eye peacock. However, he didn't have a primal chaos bead. Only life star experts could condense their own astral space. As for spatial rings, there was no way ordinary ones could contain this corpse with its ferocious will. Although the blue-eye peacock had long since died, it still had a remnant will that made it difficult to force it into anything. Xie Luo was trying to pull it into his spiritual space, but it was difficult. He had already used a secret technique of the corrupt path to seal the blue-eye peacock's crystal core, but he was still unable to move it quickly. Seeing Long Chen was coming to cause trouble, Xie Luo was enraged. Long Chen, you dare? There's nothing I don't dare to do in this world. Long Chen laughed. Instead of attacking Xie Luo, he jumped onto the blue-eye peacock's back and pulled on one of its giant feathers. Long Chen directly plucked off the giant feather. That feather looked almost identical to the feather he had obtained before. It was bright and multicolored and still retained a powerful aura. This feather was also a true feather. Most blue-eye peacocks only had a single true feather, but this one's cultivation base had already reached the peak of the 12th rank, and it had borne 9 true feathers. It was just that of those 9 true feathers, only one was the original true feather. That was the true feather that had accompanied it from the day it had been born. Inside were its inherited divine abilities, making it also called the inheritance true feather. The other 8 true feathers were born later, and those feathers were what this blue-eye peacock had been planning on relying on to advance to the 13th rank. According to reason, having already reached the samsara realm, this blue-eye peacock should have reached the realm of being almost undying. Even if it failed its breakthrough, it could undergo nirvanic rebirth. It wouldn't die here, especially not with its essence blood and original true feathers separated from it. That was very strange. Long Chen didn't have time to consider those things though. He also didn't know what these 9 true feathers represented, But his intuition told him that these 8 feathers on the corpse were definite treasures. Bastard! Xie Luo roared. This corpse's feathers were very important. A portion of the blue-eye peacock's power resided within its true feathers. Their divine marks were the foundation for its divine abilities. Don't be so emotional. It's just plucking a few feathers. Long Chen was as quick as lightning, plucking the remaining 7 true feathers in an instant. His efficiency sparked disbelief as he gathered the full set. It was unknown if it was because there was the original true feather in his primal chaos space, but those true feathers didn't resist when he plucked them. Just like that, they were gathered into his primal chaos space. Once the 8 true feathers were plucked, the blue-eye peacock dimmed. Its feathers lost their original splendor. It no longer looked as divine as before, and its aura weakened by over 50%. Die! An ancient halberd came piercing toward Long Chen's back. True immortal Jiaoqi had arrived. To handle this attack, Long Chen's golden dragon tooth smashed into true immortal Jiaoqi's halberd. A terrifying explosion erupted. Long Chen's hand split open, and blood poured out. Even having already summoned the green dragon battle armor, he was still injured and sent flying. With Long Chen and true immortal Jiaoqi exchanging a fierce blow, the blue-eye peacock's corpse was blown into the air. That delighted Xie Luo. Before this, it had been impossible for him to budge the corpse at all. In the air, it could be easily pulled into his spiritual space. However, he was also infuriated because he knew the reason that it was blown into the air was because Long Chen had plucked its 8 true feathers. In other words, having lost its 8 true feathers, this corpse's power had sharply fallen. Xie Luo formed a hand seal, causing the blue-eye peacock to fly to him. Then, a blood-colored gate appeared behind him. That was his spiritual space. Don't be in a rush. Let me help. Long Chen couldn't snatch the corpse any longer, having been blown back by true immortal Jiaoqi. So he kindly shot a ball of black flames at it. Boom! The black flames exploded on the blue-eye peacock, unleashing a wave that enveloped it. The berserk energy caused the entire nest to shake. Long Chen was actually using the black illusion dragon flame. The eruption of the flame sphere brought with it a wave of powerful spiritual strength that caused Xie Luo's spiritual space to almost collapse. The shocking thing was that the blue-eye peacock was actually ignited by the black flames. Its feathers were burned to ash. That shocked even Long Chen. Originally, he had just been planning on irritating Xie Luo with this. It had merely been a probing blow. Who would have thought that the legendary blue-eye peacock would be unable to resist the black illusion dragon flame? Its feathers were all incinerated. What they were unaware of was that the runes on those feathers were all linked to the 9 true feathers. With the 9 true feathers gone, the remaining feathers had lost their defensive power. As for the black illusion dragon flame, its power was definitely terrifying considering it was ranked 2nd on the Earth Flame rankings. Long Chen, I will skin you alive. Flames almost spurted out of Xie Luo's eyes. The blue-eye peacock had lost all of its feathers now. Many of its divine abilities had just been lost, and its value had dropped. Wow, the corrupt paths people are so ungrateful. I kindly plucked your chicken for you so you can cook it easier, but instead of thanking me, you threaten me. The corrupt path is truly contemptible. Long Chen shook his head. At this time, true immortal Jiaoqi was blocking his retreat path. His entire body was shining like gold. He trapped Long Chen between himself and Xie Luo. He knew that Xie Luo was even angrier than he was. Although he was also enemies with Xie Luo, in comparison, Long Chen was his true target. If the two of them joined hands, there would definitely be no chance of Long Chen escaping. Capturing Long Chen related to obtaining the blue-eye peacock essence blood. The blue-eye peacock looked like a roasted chicken, and Xie Luo looked like he was about to go crazy. The reason he so adamantly wanted this corpse was because he had a method to control it and activate the blue-eye peacock's divine abilities. Although they wouldn't be as powerful as when it was alive, he was confident in restoring 70% of its power. To have a peak 12th rank magical beast fighting for him, who would dare to resist? That beautiful dream had been ruined. Even if he did refine the corpse into a puppet now, He wouldn't be able to fly through the air on it like a divine steed. If he did, he didn't know how many people would laugh at him. Xie Luo put the blue-eye peacock's corpse into his spiritual space. Without the feathers, taking it was much easier. Blood runes began to revolve in Xie Luo's eyes. A blood-colored figure condensed behind him. The sound of mournful wails shook the room. That blood-colored figure was sinister and terrifying. Looking carefully, it looked like a conglomeration of millions of life forms screaming and struggling in pain. When it appeared, the world also turned blood-colored. Xie Luo was truly furious. In all his years, no one had dared to treat him like this. His killing intent soared. I need Long Chen's life. If we cooperate, we have to catch him alive, so I can search him for the essence blood. The rest of his belongings will be yours, shouted true immortal Jiaoqi. To prevent the off chance of failure, he chose to join hands with Xie Luo. Scram! Who do you think you are to cooperate with me? I'll kill Long Chen and refine him into a puppet so he'll be my eternal slave. At the same time as Xie Luo shouted, the millions of devilish ghouls behind him also roared furiously. Boom! Xie Luo's blood-red saber suddenly pointed toward the sky. As a result, his saber image struck the barrier around the nest and caused it to quiver intensely. It then hacked down at Long Chen. Long Chen took a deep breath. His expression was serious. He put away the dragon tooth and took out Evil Moon. Evil Moon was in slumber and unable to help him. However, it was the weapon he was most used to using. Without a hilt, the dragon teeth weren't capable of unleashing his power. Even if Evil Moon was unable to help him, just its hardness and weight were enough. 5-star battle armor. The power of his 108,000 stars erupted. Facing both Xie Luo and true immortal Jiaoqi, Long Chen couldn't hold back. A black saber image crashed into the blood-red saber image. The entire nest quivered. Black and red energy appeared at the top of the nest. The experts within the nest were shaken. Although they didn't know what was going on, they felt terrifying auras rising. There are peak experts fighting. Hurry! Let's see just who is so terrifying. Black and red light collided against each other. When Long Chen's Evil Moon met Xie Luo's blood-colored saber, the entire world suddenly dimmed. When Long Chen received Xie Luo's attack, he found that Xie Luo was also physically powerful, only a bit weaker than true immortal Jiaoqi. Just as he was about to circulate his energy to force Xie Luo back, his heart shook. Lightning flashed. Boom! A lightning barrier enveloped Long Chen, blocking a wave of bone needles. Xie Luo had also launched his bone needle attack silently, and Long Chen had almost fallen for it. Long Chen unleashed a burst of power, forcing back Xie Luo. Xie Luo hadn't expected Long Chen's reaction speed to be so fast. He had launched an attack with his saber and his bone needles at almost the same time, but the light from his saber covered the bone needles. As for his furious expression from before, half of it was real, but half of it was fake. He had also wanted to capture Long Chen alive, not just for the true feathers but also to force Meng Qi to hand over the essence blood. Unfortunately, Long Chen's reaction speed was too fast. He had clearly had his attention focused on his saber but had still managed to force back the bone needles with a quick defense. Long Chen had just forced back Xie Luo when a golden halberd stabbed toward Long Chen. Let's see just which one of us is stronger. Long Chen met the halberd with another slash of his saber. Boom! When Long Chen collided with true immortal Jiaoqi's halberd, he felt like he had been struck by a star. He almost coughed up blood. Long Chen was startled. When true immortal Jiaoqi was using his full power, he was actually so powerful. Long Chen was blown back. On the other hand, true immortal Jiaoqi was only forced back a dozen steps. With each step, cracks appeared in the nest. Even this tough nest was unable to bear their power. True immortal Jiaoqi stamped his foot on the ground, causing part of the nest to actually shatter. Only then did he manage to stabilize himself. When he looked back up, he saw that Xie Luo had already shot after Long Chen. Long Chen repeatedly blocked Xie Luo's attacks 17 times, while lightning spurted out of his body, blocking the bone needles. The bone needles possessed both poison and curse energy. Once struck, it would gravely affect Long Chen's combat power. Then the battle would essentially be over. Good, I didn't think your body was so powerful. Your corpse is just as valuable as the blue-eye peacocks. Xie Luo smiled sinisterly as he attacked with his saber. Xie Luo possessed a rare evil spirit body, which gave him an unmatched skill in controlling corpses. He was very interested in all-powerful corpses. He could refine them into corpse puppets to be his subordinates. Xie Luo found that Long Chen's value as a corpse was extremely great. His physical body wouldn't lose to true immortal Jiaoqi, who was from the Xian beasts. If he was refined into a puppet, he would be a fearless, undying existence with amazing killing power. You're thinking too far, said Long Chen indifferently as he continued blocking with Evil Moon. His divine sense was also locked onto true immortal Jiaoqi. After that first exchange, true immortal Jiaoqi hadn't attacked again. He was calmly watching. That attack just now had been to test Long Chen's power. It could be said that they were relatively evenly matched in power, so neither one of them could suppress the other. True immortal Jiaoqi was still angry with Xie Luo for not cooperating. Hence, he had given up that thought. He was now waiting for his opportunity to launch a fatal attack while Long Chen and Xie Luo fought. If he had a good opportunity, he wouldn't mind killing Xie Luo as well. Although the corrupt path and the Xian beasts didn't interfere with each other's businesses, there was an eternal competition between heavenly geniuses. Any threats had to be eliminated as soon as possible. Seeing true immortal Jiaoqi just standing there and watching coldly, Long Chen naturally knew what he was thinking. This was helping him greatly. He was fighting intensely against Xie Luo, while his divine ring was forcibly absorbing heaven and earth's energy to replenish his spiritual strength. Due to refining the dragon tooth and gathering the original true feather, Long Chen's spiritual strength had been exhausted to the point of affecting his combat power. Now he was quietly recovering while fighting. With the divine ring, the spiritual yuan he was using up was being replenished as quickly as he used it. Their fight was an intense one. Shocking explosions, saber images, and chi waves erupted over and over again. As their fight progressed, a few figures gradually appeared at the top of the nest. These were experts that had been exploring the nest. They hadn't found anything of value, but they had been drawn over by the terrifying auras coming from the top. True immortal Jiaoqi, Xie Luo, and Long Chen? 3 monsters actually came across each other here, exclaimed an Empyrean from the ancient family alliance. More and more experts appeared. When they saw the 3 of them, they all gasped. These experts were all on guard against each other as well. The ancient races stood to one side, the corrupt path stood to another, while the righteous path hid in a corner. They were in no mood to start a fight. They were all watching Long Chen and Xie Luo fight. That Xie Luo is claimed to be the corrupt path's #1 genius, the descendant of the corrupt path's leader, Xie Wenin. As for that monster of the Xian beasts, he's the one who got 4th on the Devil Slaughter rankings, true immortal Jiaoqi. Long Chen's definitely dead, sneered an ancient race expert. The fact that Long Chen had slain Xiang Yunfei had infuriated the ancient races. They had publicly announced that they were splitting ties with the Martial Heaven Alliance and would no longer communicate with them. Although they hadn't started a war, their attitude was clear. Seeing Xie Luo fighting Long Chen with true immortal Jiaoqi watching like a tiger lying in wait, those enemies of Long Chen were delighted. As for the righteous path's experts, they had gathered. There were over 100 of them, with only a small portion being Empyreans. The majority were rank 9 celestials. What do we do? Should we send a distress signal? Otherwise, senior apprentice brother will be in danger. An Empyrean sent a message to these experts. How would you send it? And to who? That Empyrean was struck speechless. Who would he send this distress signal to? Who would come to help Long Chen? Who actually had the power to help him? That was Xie Luo and true immortal Jiaoqi. In front of them, even other Empyreans were cannon fodder. Fuck whatever. If Long Chen does end up in danger, I'll put my life on the line to help him escape. Senior apprentice brother Long Chen is the only hope of the righteous path rising. If he falls, the righteous path will be doomed, said a rank 9 celestial suddenly. The rank 9 Celestial's words moved all the people here. His cultivation base might be low, his combat power might be weak, but this heroism was moving. In the Great Era, all the various powers were soaring. The Corrupt Path, the Ancient Races, the Ancient Family Alliance, the Xian Beasts, they were all giving birth to countless heavenly geniuses. Although the Righteous Path was also home to the birth of many heavenly geniuses, in comparison to the others, their power was clearly lacking. In the Righteous Path, Long Chen was the only one who could suppress all other heavenly geniuses, look down on all others in his generation, and be undefeated in the same realm no matter what monstrous geniuses he faced. In the eyes of many of the Righteous Path's disciples, Long Chen was an undefeatable legend. Although countless people were denouncing him in the world, it didn't affect Long Chen's particular charisma. Even as countless other heavenly geniuses were raised and monsters appeared, no one could shake him from his position as the number one figure of the Righteous Path. Even some people who had never seen Long Chen before also made their determination to help him escape even if they had to die. Brother, this courage of yours is admirable. If senior apprentice brother Long Chen is in danger, you can count me in. Another person is another chance of escaping, said an Empyrean. Count me in too. Me too. Over 30 experts made an agreement. As long as Long Chen was in mortal danger, they would work together. Even if they had to detonate their divine items, even if they had to detonate their own bodies, they would win Long Chen a chance to escape. He was the only hope of the Righteous Path. They were willing to use their lives to protect this hope. The other righteous experts were silent. However, a few looked at them disdainfully. Those were disciples of the sects that had betrayed the Martial Heaven Alliance. But even having left the Martial Heaven Alliance, they were still part of the Righteous Path, so they were standing with everyone else. If only one or two people were speaking up for Long Chen, they would definitely pour cold water on them to dispel their passion. However, there were too many of them now, so they didn't dare to provoke them. If they did, they might be killed. So they only sneered inside. As Long Chen fought Xie Luo seemed to be repeatedly retreating, whether intentionally or not. It just so happened that Long Chen was being drawn further and further away from true immortal Jiaoqi. Long Chen smiled coldly. It was just that he didn't bother exposing Xie Luo. He continued fighting within a small area, not forcing his way through. He was focused on recovering his spiritual strength. This is a battle of monsters? It doesn't seem as crazy as I imagined it. What's going on? Muttered some people inside. Although the battle looked intense, with each move being extremely sharp, such a battle didn't seem to fit with Long Chen and Xie Luo's level. True immortal Jiaoqi was still watching coldly. He gripped his Qilin halberd. He looked like a bird of prey focused on his prey. Boom. Suddenly, Xie Luo's blood-red saber unleashed a burst of light. Its power surged, forcing Long Chen back. It's now! Xie Luo laughed. His Yuan spirit appeared out of his head, forming hand seals. Blood qi surged into the sky. The void exploded, and one figure after another appeared. They were corpses wearing ancient robes, surrounding Long Chen, an evil glint in their eyes. Their terrifying auras made people shiver. Seal! Xie Luo shouted. Light erupted out of the corpse's eyes, weaving into a giant ball that trapped Long Chen. "108 corpses had appeared at once, a white light shooting out of their eyes and wrapping around Long Chen like a giant cocoon. It happened so quickly that no one could react. Once Long Chen was caught in the cocoon, divine runes appeared on the corpse's hands, and they pressed against the cocoon. The blood-colored divine runes spread, covering the cocoon. They formed a million chains that fully sealed the cocoon. The cocoon had just appeared when it began to quiver. Clearly, Long Chen was fighting to break free inside. However, once those blood-colored chains covered the cocoon, it instantly became still. People were still shocked at the appearance of the corpses when the cocoon became still. There was no time for anyone to react. The righteous experts were dumbfounded, especially those that had sworn to protect Long Chen. They had thought that Long Chen would only be defeated when true immortal Jiaoqi joined in on the fight. Their cultivation bases weren't high, but they were confident that striking when true immortal Jiaoqi joined in was the best time to save Long Chen. However, true immortal Jiaoqi hadn't moved at all before Long Chen was simply sealed. There was no chance for them to interfere at all. "Release Long Chen or I'll cut off your head." Boom. Long Chen had just been sealed when a golden halberd pierced towards Xie Luo. True immortal Jiaoqi was finally joining in. "You want Long Chen? Keep dreaming. Long Chen's been sealed by my corpse spirit seal art. The corpse poison inside will quickly exhaust all his energy and make him a puppet. I will be his master, and his everything will belong to me," sneered Xie Luo. While fighting, he had been secretly laying down a barrier within an area. This was one of his unique abilities, and he was confident that no one else would recognize what he was doing. When Long Chen entered that area, he would trigger the barrier. The barrier was not an attacking or defending barrier, but a controlling barrier. It would make a person lose consciousness for just a moment. No matter how strong Long Chen's spiritual strength was, he would lose consciousness and have illusions invade his mind. This would only affect Long Chen for a blink of an eye, but that was enough to determine victory or defeat in a battle between experts. The instant Long Chen had lost consciousness, he had activated the corpse spirit seal art that he had been preparing. This trap had been ready for a while now, but every time he had drawn Long Chen over to that area, Long Chen had inadvertently avoided it. Now, he finally stepped into it and was sealed. Now that Xie Luo's seal was complete, he no longer had to worry about Long Chen. He was sure no one could break out of his sealing art. At the very least, no one had ever broken out before. Xie Luo met true immortal Jiaoqi's halberd with his blood-red saber. A powerful qi wave surged out. Powerful astral winds buffeted the spectators. It felt like knives were cutting their faces. The intensity of this one exchange was greater than Long Chen's fight with Xie Luo. Could it be that Xie Luo wasn't using his full power while fighting Long Chen? Only now is he using his real power? Startled cries rang out. Long Chen was sealed now, and Xue Luo's fight with true immortal Jiaoqi far surpassed Xie Luo's fight with Long Chen in terms of power and aura. Long Chen's fame is all fake. The reason he could fight so long with Xie Luo is just because Xie Luo wanted to capture him alive. Otherwise, Long Chen wouldn't even be able to receive 10 moves, sneered an ancient race expert. Let alone 10 moves, he probably wouldn't even be able to take 3 moves. The Righteous Path's #1 expert was created through bragging, it seems. He was just duping his own people. The Righteous Path has no top experts. Other experts added their own mocking voices as they looked at the Righteous Path's experts. If they weren't intent on watching this battle between peak geniuses, they might have even surrounded those righteous experts. "Xie Luo, I'll ask you one more time. Are you really not going to hand over Long Chen?" demanded true immortal Jiaoqi. "What lands in my hands belongs to me. If you aren't smart, I won't mind adding you to my corpse collection as well," sneered Xie Luo. "Then you can die. Drake power." True immortal Jiaoqi suddenly shouted, and the drake figure behind him grew explosively. The cry of a dragon could vaguely be heard. The golden light shining out of true immortal Jiaoqi's body condensed entirely into his Qilin halberd. "You're the one who will die." Xie Luo laughed sinisterly. The blood-red figure of Xie Luo's manifestation suddenly extended its arms into Xie Luo. A sea of blood-colored runes poured into his body. Evil spirit possession. Xie Luo's body transformed, and he no longer looked like a desiccated corpse. He transformed into a normal-looking person. As their power grew explosively, the ground beneath their feet began to constantly crack. This incomparably sturdy nest was unable to bear their power. Heavens, what kind of power is this? This nest was so tough that for them, a full-strength attack wouldn't even be able to damage it. Now it was covered in cracks. Now is the best time to save senior apprentice brother Long Chen. One of the righteous experts suddenly charged into the battlefield heading for the cocoon, taking advantage of when the two of them were fighting to save Long Chen. Following him, over 30 experts shot over. The divine items in their hands began to shine brighter and brighter. They had made their preparations to detonate their divine items. Their actions startled everyone. They hadn't thought that the Righteous Path's disciples, which had always been cowardly like mice and never been united, would risk their lives to save Long Chen. Xie Luo merely sneered disdainfully. This corpse spirit sealing art of his could not be broken through external power. Even he would need to undo the seal bit by bit. Even if the corpses guarding the cocoon couldn't stop them, they wouldn't be able to break the seal. In his view, they were sending themselves to their deaths. He ignored them and continued fighting true immortal Jiaoqi. His fight with him was reaching a climax, and he couldn't be careless. Boom. Those righteous experts had just gotten close to the cocoon when a black saber image tore out of the cocoon. It pierced into the sky, tearing through the barrier around the nest. What? That huge saber image possessed horrifying power. It slashed down like a celestial blade. Split the heavens 7. Following it was an explosive cry. The barrier around the nest exploded. The celestial blade slashed down at Xie Luo and true immortal Jiaoqi mercilessly. True immortal Jiaoqi and Xie Luo were both shocked, especially Xie Luo. He had never thought that Long Chen would be able to break his seal. The truth was that Long Chen had long since seen through Xie Luo's intentions. He had intentionally let himself be sealed. His spiritual strength had fully recovered, allowing him to use his trump cards at their full potential. He didn't fear this kind of sealing art. Just as the two of them reached a climax in their fight, Long Chen suddenly unleashed the forbidden 7th form of Split the Heavens. Back then, the old man had repeatedly warned him not to use the 7th form until he reached the Life Star realm. Otherwise, he would become a cripple. However, Long Chen was extremely confident in his meridians. He had decided to take this risk to see if he could eliminate the two of them. The void exploded. Fragments of it transformed into dust. That terrifying barrier appeared weak in front of the 7th form of Split the Heavens. Xie Luo and true immortal Jiaoqi's expressions changed. If they were struck by this saber, they would definitely die. Right now, their power was locked against each other. Whoever pulled back first would be struck and injured before the saber even arrived. Pull back together. Xie Luo and true immortal Jiaoqi exchanged a look, and the light from their weapons erupted. Both of them hacked up blood, their faces turning as pale as paper. Just now, they had severed their own energy. Pulling it back would take too long. Severing their own power like this was a kind of taboo. It was very harmful to the body, equivalent to attacking oneself. However, even as they coughed up blood, they didn't hesitate. Their divine items blazed with divine light as they attacked Long Chen's saber image. At the same time, they retreated. In this scenario, they were unable to unleash even half their power. Who would foolishly stand there? They naturally chose to run. Boom. Their attacks instantly shattered upon contact with the celestial saber. The two of them once more coughed up blood and tumbled into the distance. The leftover power of the celestial saber crashed down where the two of them had been. The nest was cut through as easily as tofu. Originally, the place that Long Chen was at was near the edge of the nest. Now his attack had cut the nest cleanly in two. A huge ditch appeared, and it went so deep it was impossible to see the bottom. Everyone was struck dumb. They stared in shock at Long Chen. Long Chen looked like a god who had just walked out of the cocoon. His wild and domineering aura made their hearts turn cold. Holding Evil Moon, he circulated thunder force around his feet. He was about to shoot after the injured Xie Luo and true immortal Jiaoqi when his expression changed. Lei Long appeared, swallowing those disciples who had been trying to save Long Chen but were now struck dumb. As for Long Chen himself, lightning wings appeared on his back. He shot away with Lei Long, vanishing from sight in an instant. Just as everyone was still confused as to why Long Chen was running, the nest exploded. Black chi suddenly surged out of the bottomless ditch Long Chen had made. What is that? This black chi contained terrifying death energy. Large hands appeared, reaching out for them. Run! Startled cries rang out. The black hands had an absolutely horrifying aura. Everyone instantly fled. These people were all experts amongst experts. They were extremely fast, but those hands were even faster. They began to grab experts. No! Anyone grabbed by those hands exploded into bits. Their yuan spirits flew out of the remnants of their bodies and quickly withered into nothingness. Sounds of despair rang out. The nest had suddenly transformed into hell on earth. Long Chen hadn't gotten far when one of those large hands chased after him. Long Chen immediately felt a chill. This hand contained an indescribable energy that inspired terror. You guys run. I'll block this attack. Long Chen had Lei Long release those experts who had wanted to save him. That large black hand was slamming toward him. Senior apprentice brother Long Chen. Don't get emotional, just run. Long Chen waved his hand, sending them flying away. He found that the black hand was locked onto him. Others could leave, but he couldn't. He wasn't sure, but it seemed that his attack had broken some kind of law in this place, causing the black hand to want to kill him. Even though he had been the first to run, he had not managed to reach a safe zone. That black hand was pouncing toward him. If he tried to block it, these experts would be killed by the shockwave, so he had them leave first. The black hand was even faster than he was. Taking a deep breath, Long Chen prepared to unleash the seventh form of Split the Heavens again. However, he had just activated his acupuncture points when he coughed up blood. Fuck! Long Chen's expression suddenly changed. When he had used the seventh form of Split the Heavens before, he hadn't felt much, but now that he tried again, he suddenly found that his meridians were extremely weak. If he hadn't sensed this early enough and pulled back, his meridians would have all shattered. He hadn't listened to the old man's advice and had used the seventh form of Split the Heavens before reaching the Life Star realm. Considering how powerful the seventh form was, he was lucky that his meridians had only been shaken. If it was anyone else, their meridians would have been destroyed. Damn, it's that corpse poison. I was actually poisoned. Long Chen sensed his condition and was shocked to find that he had underestimated Xie Luo's corpse spirit sealing art. A portion of the corpse poison had bypassed his thunder force to invade his body without him being aware of it. Long Chen couldn't help being regretful over how he had tried to play a trick to kill the two of them. He had been too greedy. Instead of gaining any advantage, he had almost destroyed his meridians, had been poisoned, and was now being hunted down by this hand. With his meridians damaged, Long Chen couldn't use his spiritual yuan. His yuan spirit came out. Double dragon destruction. There were no other techniques he could use. He could only summon Lei Long and Hua Long. The two of them possessed their own stores of energy. However, without the support of his spiritual yuan, their power sharply dropped. Boom. Lei Long and Hua Long were blown apart upon contact with the hand. The hand merely shook slightly, but it didn't stop. Fortunately, that was enough for Long Chen to escape its lock. He shot away, covered in sweat. That hand had made him smell the scent of death. That was the air of death, of darkness, of corrosion, of severing all life. That was something he had experienced once before. It was very similar to the air of the netherworld. Long Chen rapidly fled. He was gratified to see that hand begin to retreat after missing. It didn't attack again. It seemed it had a set attack range, and Long Chen had already escaped it. As for the righteous disciples, they cheered when they saw Long Chen escape alive. They had never imagined a peak expert like Long Chen would use himself to block a fatal attack for them. You guys should run. This place is too sinister. Brothers, thank you for your loyalty. I wish you well. Let us meet again. Long Chen waved to those people as he fled. He had no choice but to leave. The corpse poison was invading his body and weakening him. Otherwise, there was no way he wouldn't have noticed the problem with his meridians. This had all been too dangerous. His meridians had almost been shattered. If that happened, he would be crippled. Even if he had the primal chaos space, recovering from that would be almost impossible. That wasn't a problem with his physical body that could be instantly healed. If his meridians shattered, he estimated he would need at least the majority of the year to recover, during which time he couldn't fight. In the yin-yang world, let alone a condition in which he couldn't use his spiritual yuan, any condition that was not his peak condition was dangerous. So Long Chen really felt regretful. He had wanted to play smart and eliminate the two of them right then and there, but he had almost caused himself to die. That kind of foolishness wasn't something he wanted to repeat a second time. This kind of game wasn't fun at all. This time, he had experienced the terror of the seventh form of Split the Heavens. He had just used a rudimentary form of it, the simplest form with the least danger, but had still harmed his meridians. The old man had told him that when using the seventh form of Split the Heavens, connecting all the acupuncture points was just the first step. The next step was to reconnect the final acupuncture point with the dantian and once more send the energy through the 63 acupuncture points. The energy added up but put even greater stress on the meridians. If he could do this 7 times, then he would be able to unleash the full power of the seventh form of Split the Heavens. The first time he used the seventh form of Split the Heavens, his meridians had started to crack, but due to the corpse poison, he hadn't noticed. When he tried using it a second time, he had realized something was wrong and scattered his spiritual yuan, but that had still almost caused his meridians to explode. Looking at the distant nest, he saw the black hands slowly sink back underground. They were claws from hell that had slain people before returning to their home. I wonder if true immortal Jiaoqi and Xie Luo got away. Hopefully, they didn't have a good ending. Long Chun prayed for the two of them as he left. However, he knew that the two of them still had their own trump cards. They had definitely not used them during that battle. They had wanted to pay the lowest price and expose the fewest trump cards to achieve their goals. After all, there had been 3 of them there, and even if one of them was killed, the remaining 2 could spread information about the other's trump cards. It was precisely because he had seen this point that Long Chen had hoped to eliminate the 2 of them before they had unleashed their full power. If his attack had struck them at full power, it truly might have been able to kill the 2 of them, but regretfully breaking through the barrier around the nest had slowed it down and given them enough time to defend. If he hadn't been poisoned and his meridians hadn't been harmed, right now would be the best time to hunt the 2 of them down. Regretfully, it seemed the heavens were against him. Long Chun flew away, consuming 2 medicinal pills used for expelling poison. These had been personally refined by him. Xie Luo's corpse poison was extremely powerful. It would take time to expel it. More importantly, he also had to heal his meridians during this time. His meridians were only cracked right now, so healing them didn't take too long. 6 hours later, Long Chen was able to just barely circulate his spiritual yuan, but he couldn't fight. Although this battle had been very dangerous, Long Chen still felt that it was worth it when he thought of the gains. Just the original True Feather was enough to make countless heavenly geniuses go mad. Once Meng Qi refined it, she would be able to activate the Blue-Eye Peacock's divine abilities. That power wasn't something he could imagine. The most unexpected thing this time around was the existence of righteous experts that had risked their lives to try and save him. Furthermore, there had been over 30 of them. That moved him. Perhaps the righteous path wasn't as bad as he thought. There were still many hot-blooded, righteous people within it. Not everyone was so foolish, and not everyone was such a manipulator. This was his first time feeling that there were still many good disciples in the righteous path. As Long Chen flew, he spread his divine sense, avoiding any experts. After all, now wasn't a good time for him to fight. Long Chen. After a day, Long Chen arrived at a ravine. Meng Qi had been waiting for him here, and she immediately threw herself toward him, hugging him. She had been very worried. "Where is Cloud?" asked Long Chen after kissing her on the forehead. It had been a long time since she had been so intimate with Long Chen, causing Meng Qi to blush slightly. "Cloud has begun refining the Marrow cleansing essence. She's in seclusion in my spiritual space. But once Cloud's done, she can refine the Blue-Eye Peacock's essence blood. She'll have completely transformed." Long Chen nodded with a smile. The cloud-chasing heaven-swallowing sparrow and the Blue-Eye Peacock had originated from the same race. That essence blood was extremely helpful to her. "Meng Qi, let me give you a gift." Long Chen smiled and waved a hand. 9 beautiful feathers appeared in the air. Meng Qi covered her mouth, staring at them with disbelief. The original True Feather? Meng Qi looked at it in disbelief. When Long Chen had been taking this feather, the space around him had been unstable, making her unable to see what had been within. Furthermore, she had been focused on the blood pool. This time, she immediately let out a startled cry upon seeing this treasure. Long Chen, thank you. Meng Qi excitedly hugged Long Chen. These 9 true feathers were treasures made in heaven for her. She had previously obtained 999 true feathers from the second level of the nest, but these 9 were qualitatively on a completely different level. She had already refined those feathers and could use them as flying swords, but these 9 true feathers could be used to unleash powerful divine abilities. She would only be able to tell how strong they were once she refined them. Just as Meng Qi anxiously tried to take the true feathers, the original true feather began to resist again. Its aura began to rise. Long Chen snorted and was about to unleash the pressure of the primal chaos bead to suppress it when he was stopped by Meng Qi. This original true feather contains the blue-eye peacock's will. It can't be subdued with brute power. Even if you do suppress it temporarily, it won't stay suppressed for a lifetime. It would rather self-destruct if you force it. Leave it to me. I'll have it slowly get used to me, said Meng Qi confidently. Long Chen nodded. Meng Qi was much more skilled in this regard and never acted crazily like he did. If she said that she could do this, there would be no problem. Long Chen summoned Hua Long to protect them. Lei Long had already used up too much energy and needed to rest. While Meng Qi tried to communicate with the original true feather, Long Chen began to expel the poison and heal his meridians. This wasn't his first time dealing with poison, but it was his first time encountering a poison that could enter his body through his thunder force without him being aware of it. I suppose it's to be expected of the legendary evil spirit body. Although I don't understand it too well, it definitely looks badass. Expelling this corpse poison was proving to be very difficult. It had actually invaded his spirit blood, spiritual yuan, and even his soul. He needed to erase it bit by bit. Long Chen was quite surprised. Fortunately, he had noticed this poison soon enough, or it might have paralyzed him. Xie Luo was even more dangerous than true immortal Jiaoqi, as this kind of silent danger was much worse than true immortal Jiaoqi's fierce attacks. 3 days later, Long Chen had finished expelling the corpse poison and repairing his meridians. However, he no longer dared to test using the 7th form of Split the Heavens. It really wasn't something he was capable of controlling yet. Unless he had no other choice, he definitely wouldn't try using it again. After using it, his meridians would be unable to endure any more impact for a while. He would be powerless to keep fighting. He looked at Meng Qi and saw that she had long since woken up. She was looking at him while leaning her head in her hands. When he opened his eyes, she blushed like a maiden. Meng Qi, what evil did you commit in your last life? Sighed Long Chen. What are you talking about? For a fairy like you to suffer by an ordinary man like me, you must have committed quite a few sins in your last life. Or this would have to be the luck of several of my lifetimes to end up with you, said Long Chen. He brushed Meng Qi's cheek lightly. Meng Qi smiled faintly. She rebuked, is this how you tricked the others? Long Chen raised 3 fingers. Fool, I'm teasing you. What are you swearing for? Meng Qi pulled Long Chen's hand down and tapped him on the forehead. Hee, it's because I've already said everything I have to say to you. You're the one who understands me the best, said Long Chen. These were the words of an expert, especially the word best. It was practically divine. Naturally, women liked to be unique and unrivaled. This best made all the women beside him feel special and irreplaceable. Meng Qi cuddled next to Long Chen. Her fragrance filled his nose. Long Chen tightly held her, feeling peaceful and content. Meng Qi, I feel like as long as you're with me, even hell would be a wonderland. Lie. I won't fall for it. Although Meng Qi said that, she held him tighter. Suddenly, Meng Qi pushed Long Chen away in a panic. She turned around, her face redder than ever. Even her ears were red. What is it? You've reacted? Long Chen immediately felt embarrassed. He took a few deep breaths, forcing down the swelling that had occurred without his knowledge. Meng Qi, have you finished refining the blue-eye true feathers? Asked Long Chen to change the subject. Meng Qi smiled happily. Suddenly, 999 true feathers appeared in the air, each one of them emitting a sharp air. How powerful! Long Chen was amazed. Each of these feathers gave him a great deal of pressure. These true feathers came from 999 different blue-eye peacocks. The power of their cultivation bases is condensed within them. Although they're already dead, I can use my spiritual strength to activate their own innate attacks. The power of that innate attack is equivalent to 30% of their power when they were still alive. Although it's just 30%, when all 999 of them are added together, although I haven't tested it, that power will definitely be amazing. Meng Qi excitedly held Long Chen's hand. She truly adored these beautiful true feathers. Long Chen was stunned by this. If she could unleash 30% of the power of a living blue-eye peacock, then when 999 of them were combined, it would definitely be a stunning sight. Then what about the original true feather and the 8 other true feathers? Have you refined those yet? Asked Long Chen. Those were even more priceless. Not yet, I can only slowly pacify them and win their trust. Otherwise, there'll be no way for me to control them. It shouldn't be a problem though. Once Cloud finishes refining the blue-eye peacock essence blood, she can help me, and things will become much easier, said Meng Qi. The 999 true feathers vanished. Although they had been refined by her, to use them at will would require her to nourish them with her spiritual strength. Is Cloud fine still? Asked Long Chen. There's no problem. As a cloud-chasing heaven-swallowing sparrow, she has a definite bloodline connection to the blue-eye peacock, so the essence blood doesn't reject her. Once she manages to refine that essence blood, not only will her own bloodline mutate, strengthening her innate divine abilities, but she might even gain the divine abilities of the blue-eye peacock. Regretfully, there is no image of the blue-eye peacock on the myriad spirit diagram, or Cloud would be able to control even more divine abilities, said Meng Qi regretfully. Careful not to get too greedy, teased Long Chen. The cloud-chasing heaven-swallowing sparrow's inheritance is already powerful enough. It's not at all inferior to the blue-eye peacock. As long as Cloud can master the cloud-chasing heaven-swallowing sparrow race's divine abilities, that would be enough for her to look down on the rest of the world. After all, the words heaven-swallowing expression represent a kind of taboo. You are correct. Meng Qi nodded. It's just too bad that you didn't get anything from the nest. All the benefits went to me and Cloud. Long Chen had worked in the nest entirely for her and Cloud, even injuring himself without obtaining anything. Who said I didn't benefit? At the very least, I've gotten a good estimate of Xie Luo and true immortal Jiaoqi's true power, said Long Chen. Bringing up Xie Luo and true immortal Jiaoqi made Meng Qi's expression darken. The two of them are real monsters. Experts on that level don't have any weaknesses. Meng Qi's spiritual strength was essentially useless against the two of them, making her feel profoundly powerless. After entering seclusion a while ago, she had reached the point of having her manifestation begin to awaken. Her Yuan spirit had grown stronger, and her spiritual strength had multiplied. At the same time, Cloud's own power had grown explosively. That had made her extremely confident, but this confidence was given a grave blow as soon as she entered the yin-yang world. Long Chen, are they stronger than you? I can't say. Neither of them exposed their true power or trump cards. However, I did the same, so we can't say who's stronger or weaker. But you don't need to worry, I definitely wouldn't fear fighting either one of them. I'll probably just be at a disadvantage in a 2 against 1. The two of them were truly powerful, and none of them had wished to expose their trump cards. Those were the tools they would need to kill their opponents. The two of them were definitely the most powerful opponents Long Chen had seen so far. You don't need to worry about them. Now you have the true feathers, and Cloud's power will definitely soar once she finishes refining the essence blood. You'll then definitely be able to fight people like them. Even if you can't beat them, you should be able to escape, comforted Long Chen. Speaking of which, what about everyone else? How are they doing? Asked Long Chen. Only now did Long Chen have time to ask about the Dragonblood Legion. Meng Qi, Tang Wanner, and the others had finally come out of seclusion, with their manifestations reaching an initial awakening level. With that, their control over heavenly Tao energy had reached a whole new level. With the help of the Blood Essence Stones and Blood Soul Stones, their physical bodies and souls had also grown much stronger. Not long after they came out of their seclusion, they rushed over to the Yin-Yang world. Before Long Chen had entered, Chu Jianying had sent the Shintian Dao sect a message that all Dragonblood warriors were to charge into the Yin-Yang world. By the time they arrived, the gate to the Yin-Yang world had been fully opened, and it did not require Nether Passage experts to exhaust their life and death energy to send them in. However, even before they entered the Yin-Yang world, the Dragonblood Legion had ended up having a fight with a group of experts from the Ancient Family Alliance. When Long Chen had slain Xiang Yunfei, the Ancient Family Alliance had broken ties with the Martial Heaven Alliance. Although they had yet to express any hostility, it was very heavily implied. At that time, the Ancient Family Alliance had had a group of dozens of Empyreans, as well as experts from the ancient races that had come. They had blocked the path of the Dragonblood Legion, telling them to scram, even yelling obscenities at Meng Qi, Chu Yao, and the others. The furious Tang Wanner had been the first to attack. She had directly slain one of the Empyreans of the Ancient Family Alliance. As a result, a huge battle erupted. Hundreds of powerful experts had tried to kill the Dragonblood Legion. Under Xia Chen's orders, the Dragonblood Legion had instantly surrounded those people. In just a few seconds, they had been slain. From start to finish, it had just been a few breaths' time. Those experts that had provoked the Dragonblood Legion were all slaughtered. The other experts that had been present at that time were all pale with horror. That was because the ones that had slain those powerful experts were the ordinary warriors of the Dragonblood Legion. Chu Yao, Meng Qi, Tang Wana, Gu Yang, Yu Zifeng, and the others hadn't attacked. Just the ordinary Dragonblood warriors were able to kill those attackers, including the dozens of Empyreans. Those powerful Empyreans appeared to be weaklings in front of the Dragonblood warriors. They couldn't even resist. Through Xia Chen's arrival and training, the Dragonblood Legion had truly become extremely terrifying. These experts had wanted to take advantage of the Dragonblood Legion since they didn't have many Empyreans and Long Chen wasn't present, destroying the name of the unrivaled Legion. However, unexpectedly, these people had ended up being a training opportunity for the Dragonblood Legion and were annihilated. Other than Guoran and Xia Chen, everyone was shocked by their power, including the Dragonblood warriors themselves. They hadn't expected their new formation to be so powerful. Guoran and Xia Chen had cheered excitedly, especially Guoran. Countless people had witnessed that brief fight, and others who had thought about fighting them immediately retreated with dismay. Upon entering the Yin-Yang world, Guoran decided not to have everyone split up so that they wouldn't encounter any of the peak experts present. As long as the Dragonblood Legion didn't spread out, they wouldn't need to fear any experts. Such a terrifying legion was enough to sweep through the Yin-Yang world. However, of their top experts, several had left. Yu Zifeng had left on his own. No one had ever managed to figure out his true power. The Dragonblood warriors all thought that Yu Zifeng was the strongest existence in the Dragonblood Legion after Long Chen. Once Yu Zifeng left, Meng Qi had also chosen to depart. She had Cloud, and she herself was a powerful soul cultivator. Adding on Cloud's power and speed, she would be able to escape alive no matter who her enemy was. It was just that having entered the nest, there had been nowhere for her to go. The twisting paths meant that Cloud couldn't take advantage of her speed. Since Meng Qi had wanted to go, Chu Yao also chose to leave. Lu Rian had said that she sensed something in the Yin-Yang world calling out to her, so she wanted to search for it. Thus, the Dragonblood Legion was currently being led by Tang Wana, Xia Chen, Guoran, Gu Yang, Li Qi, and Song Mingyuan. Although it was a bit inconvenient for over 10,000 people to be traveling together, it was safe. With so many people, they definitely wouldn't overlook anything while searching through the Yin-Yang world. As for whether they could find any treasures, that was entirely up to luck. Even if they couldn't find any treasures, considering Guoran's nature, conveniently plundering others was definitely possible. Long Chen truly understood Guoran far too well. If he couldn't find any treasures, he would definitely send a small group of the Dragonblood warriors out to cause some trouble and parade themselves around, baiting their enemies to attack them. Then the entire legion would come crashing down on them, and if they didn't hand over their treasures, Guoran would teach them why flowers were red. Long Chen nodded once Meng Qi had finished speaking. Yu Zifeng and Chu Yao should be fine on their own. If Meng Qi hadn't been unlucky and encountered true immortal Jiaoqi, she also would have been fine. As long as they didn't encounter experts on the level of true immortal Jiaoqi and Xie Luo, they would definitely be safe. Encountering experts on that level wasn't so easy. Opportunity existed within danger. Without taking risks, there was no way of gaining anything. Taking risks was in itself a kind of cultivation. Long Chen, do you feel like that nest was very strange? Asked Meng Qi suddenly. While soothing the blue-eye peacock's original true feather, I used a secret art from the myriad spirit diagram that can quickly soothe souls. However, the will of the blue-eye peacocks will contain endless grievance and resentment. It seems it died in an extremely miserable way, causing its will to be very fierce. It took me a long time to calm it down. Through its will, I could almost see how it was cruelly slain, its essence blood extracted, and its true feathers plucked. Meng Qi's own voice contained a bitter tone. Although she hadn't managed to see the complete scene, she had managed to glimpse some memories of the blue-eye peacock right before its death. The original true feather in Meng Qi's spiritual space buzzed as if resonating with Meng Qi's words and emotions. Meng Qi once more used her spiritual strength to comfort it. This original true feather might not contain its own intelligence, but it contained a portion of the blue-eye peacock's will from right before its death. It truly was very strange. When I broke the nest, black hands came out of the ground and killed the experts present. According to you, that blue-eye peacock in the nest was slain by others, and its essence blood, corpse, and original true feather were deliberately separated? Long Chen suddenly slapped his leg and exclaimed, "Wait, it seems there were some faint fluctuations at the top of those 3 spots. Most likely, it was the formation supporting those 3 things. The hands didn't come out because I broke the nest, but because I broke the barrier." Long Chen nodded with comprehension. He had felt that the nest was very strange, but he hadn't managed to figure it out. But through Meng Qi's reminder, he was sure that this place was artificially made. It's too bad Xiachen isn't here. With his understanding of formations, he might be able to see some clues, said Meng Qi. This formation was most likely absorbing heaven and earth's energy to support the corpse, essence blood, and true original feather. That appearance, it was like raising pigs. Meng Qi and Long Chen's expressions suddenly changed. If their guess was correct, then this yin-yang world was not a masterless world. They were stealing treasures that others were nourishing and raising. If the master of those treasures were to learn of their actions, what would occur? Is the yin-yang world really the land of some major figures? Meng Qi's voice quivered slightly. If that really was true, how terrifying did the master of the yin-yang world have to be? Let's not bother with that so much. Perhaps the master already died a long time ago. Even if they haven't, we should still take these things. It's always the most daring people who have the most gains. I've even dared to take the things of a Yama king, so who cares? Come, I'll bring you to a good place, said Long Chen with a smile. Where? Are we not going to regroup with the Dragonblood Legion? Asked Meng Qi. They have Guoran leading them, so they'll be fine. Furthermore, they also have a formation grandmaster like Xiachen present. I'm not worried about them. Long Chen began to fly away with Meng Qi. With Cloud refining the essence blood, they could only fly themselves. I found a mysterious place previously. Let's go see if we can get anything from there. They quickly arrived at an unending mountain range. When Meng Qi saw those terrifying 12th rank magical beasts spread throughout this territory, she shivered. What are you thinking of doing? Just picking out a couple steeds for you. Don't joke around. With my spiritual strength, there's no way I can suppress a 12th rank magical beast. It's definitely impossible before breaking through to the Life Star realm. We'll just try. I happen to be the king of these beasts. When they see me, they don't even dare to make a sound. Even if I kick them, they won't say anything. Long Chen patted his chest confidently. Meng Qi definitely didn't believe such nonsense, But as Long Chen led her deeper, she saw more and more 12th rank magical beasts standing even closer to each other. She felt like she was going crazy. If they were to startle these magical beasts, not even 10,000 lives would be enough to escape from here alive. The most unbelievable thing was that Long Chen actually brought her to a giant snow wolf. He actually brought her right in front of its face. "What are you doing?" Meng Qi was pale with fright. Long Chen jumped onto the wolf's back, and Meng Qi felt like her heart had stopped beating. "It's fine. This is my old friend." This was the wolf that Long Chen had encountered before. Seeing Long Chen return with another person, it glanced at him for a moment before closing its eyes again. Long Chen brought the stunned Meng Qi up the wolf's head. He patted its head. "Brother, can you stand for me? We're not high enough to see the amazing scenery." The wolf, which had previously ignored Long Chen, bared its fangs at him now for giving it an order. However, it had just expressed its anger when Long Chen tossed out a medicinal pill that entered its mouth. The wolf's anger instantly vanished. After hesitating, it decided to stand. Once it stood, they had a higher vantage point, and Meng Qi finally saw the circular mountain in the distance. When she saw that the mountain was surrounded by countless powerful 12th rank magical beasts, she sucked in a cold gasp of air just like Long Chen had done. "What is going on?" she asked. "I'm not sure. But look, under the wolf is a cave. There's a special aura coming out of it," said Long Chen. "This is the aura of primordial life," said Meng Qi with a strange expression after sensing the air coming out of the cave. The wolf seemed to be somewhat alarmed to see Long Chen and Meng Qi eyeing the cave, so it knelt down once more, staring at them. Meng Qi had already jumped off of it, but the wolf stubbornly blocked the cave, no longer letting the two of them look. "What is this primordial life aura?" asked Long Chen. Meng Qi said, "It refers to the energy of a mother's amniotic fluid. It's the fluid which births life. Humans, magical beasts, Xian beasts, they all rely on this primordial life fluid to grow in the womb. But why would such an aura be here?" Meng Qi shook her head, indicating that she didn't know either. However, this primordial life fluid which she had sensed was incredibly grand. She had never sensed such terrifying fluctuations. "Let's go sneak a peek," said Long Chen. "Sneak to peek?" Meng Qi looked at the distant concentrated 12th rank magical beasts. "It's fine, they just guard their own territory. We don't look like threats, so they won't bother us. Furthermore, because there are so many of them around, they won't make any moves until they have to. Perhaps there's a treasure in that circular mountain, so I feel like we should risk it." Long Chen smiled. "Even at this time, you can still smile? No wonder others call you a monster," sighed Meng Qi. But that smile loosened her tense nerves. Meng Qi couldn't help sighing. If she could advance to the Life Star realm here, she would definitely have a chance to gather a few powerful house pets with this many 12th rank magical beasts obediently lying here. However, the Patriarch and Li Tianxian had harshly warned all of them before entering the Yin-Yang world that they could not make that breakthrough within this world. Otherwise, their cultivation bases would stagnate and they would never be able to advance again. Meng Qi currently only had Cloud, and she had never had a chance to gather stronger house pets. Ordinary 10th rank magical beasts weren't worth the effort for her. Long Chen brought Meng Qi forward carefully. They didn't intentionally suppress their auras because that would only raise the guards of the magical beasts. They simply walked over, passing by the magical beasts. Some of them looked coldly at them. Only a few unfriendly ones stood and raised their hackles at them in warning. However, even they didn't attack. When they encountered those bad-tempered magical beasts, Long Chen would make a slight detour around them, indicating he was harmless. After doing that, those magical beasts didn't bother him. As they went further in, the magical beasts grew more concentrated. Some of them were extremely tense, making it so Long Chen had to carefully bypass them. He found that the further he went, the stronger the auras of the magical beasts grew. However, the stronger they were, the better their temper was. Perhaps it was because they were so strong that they viewed the two of them as ants, so they weren't wary when they passed by. Both of them quickly arrived at the circular mountain. There was no longer any way forward unless they crawled on top of the bodies of the magical beasts because they were standing side by side. "Now what?" whispered Meng-Chi. The two of them didn't dare to fly here. If they were in the air and those magical beasts attacked, they wouldn't have a chance to dodge. But while they were on the ground, these magical beasts seemed to be restraining each other and wouldn't easily attack. "There's a silver horn bull over there. That kind of magical beast has a slightly better temper. Maybe we can test going over with it." Long Chen pulled Meng-Chi past a black gorilla to the bull. The silver horn bull's horn was gigantic and flickered with divine light. It seemed to be absorbing something through that horn. Long Chen and Meng-Chi quietly climbed up its body. The silver horn bull didn't react at all. Standing on top of its head, they looked inside the circular mountain. This was actually a giant volcano, and there was dense immortal mist covering it. An endless flow of life energy flowed out of it. Just taking a breath here would fully refresh someone. These magical beasts were all quietly lying here in meditation, greedily absorbing the immortal mist flowing out of the volcano. Unfortunately, the mist blocked their sight as well as their divine sense. They couldn't see the situation within. "Let's go down." Long Chen carefully slid down the silver horn bull's ear. Suddenly, its giant eyes slowly opened, making Meng-Chi jump. However, after looking around, it lazily closed its eyes again. It had clearly noticed them yet didn't care. Seeing Long Chen continue sliding out as if nothing had happened, Meng-Chi sighed. It took big guts to follow Long Chen in his adventuring. Anyone with a weak heart would have been frightened to death. Not good. Long Chen and Meng-Chi suddenly found that they were unable to sustain flight within this region. After sliding off the bull's ear, they couldn't float in the air. They began to involuntarily descend down the volcano. Meng-Chi covered her mouth so that she didn't scream. They began to fall like two stones. A no-flying zone. Long Chen was startled. It was impossible to fly within this volcano. It seemed that there was a special law prohibiting their magical arts. Long Chen grabbed Meng-Chi's waist and held on tightly as they fell. They quickly entered the mist and became unable to see anything. Even their divine sense was restricted. The two of them felt like they had become ordinary mortals. Long Chen maneuvered so that Meng-Chi was sitting on his arms, while he stuck a leg out. Once they landed on solid ground, he could cushion their fall so that Meng-Chi wasn't injured. However, they continued falling for a full incense stick's worth of time without reaching the bottom. The two of them were both astonished. Just how deep was this volcano? Finally, Long Chen felt his foot strike something. He was about to push Meng-Chi up when he found that it was actually water. What was beneath the immortal mist was actually a pool. They immediately sank into it, unleashing a huge wave. Long Chen did his best to raise Meng-Chi up and soften the impact. In truth, after going through the Blood Essence Stone's upgrade, Meng-Chi's physical body could not be compared to ordinary soul cultivators. This kind of impact was unable to injure her. The two of them swam up. They looked around and couldn't see the end of this lake. Above them was the immortal mist that blocked their sight to the outside world. This water. Meng-Chi suddenly looked at the lake in shock. Long Chen also felt it. This water made his pores open naturally and absorbed the spiritual qi in the surroundings. It made him feel relaxed, and there was also a nourishing energy within this lake that cleansed his soul. It's a whole lake of primordial life fluid. How is that possible? Exclaimed Meng-Chi. Let's find out. Long Chen swam downward. He felt like he had seen something deep within the water when they had fallen in. The water was clear, allowing them to see up to 3,000 meters away. At the bottom, he saw something white, but he didn't know what it was. Finally, after around another incense stick's worth of time, Long Chen managed to see what that white object was. It was actually a giant egg, and it was even larger than a mountain. It was covered in runes and emitted a frightening divine pressure. Meng-Chi, take a look. Do you recognize this egg? Long Chen sent a spiritual message. Meng-Chi slowly approached. She was about to touch it when Long Chen's expression suddenly changed. He sensed a terrifying burst of energy, and he pulled Meng-Chi behind him. The giant egg's runes shook ever so slightly. A wave of light struck Long Chen. The entire lake shook, and huge waves crashed down. Long Chen coughed up a mouthful of blood. He was shocked to find that several bones in his chest had been broken. Although he had helped Meng Qi block this attack, Meng Qi also suffered, feeling like her body was about to be crushed. The two of them exchanged a look, seeing each other's shock. Then they looked at the seemingly innocent egg. It actually knew how to attack. Long Chen gestured at Meng Qi, telling her to get further back. He took out a dragon tooth and stabbed it at the egg. Boom! The egg's runes erupted with power. Long Chen felt like his body was about to explode, and a powerful wave sent him flying. Boom! Long Chen was directly blown out of the lake. He coughed up a mouthful of blood. Following him was the dragon tooth that he caught. Long Chen, are you all right? Meng Qi came charging out of the water, swimming over to his side. Huge waves rocked the lake, which pulled the two of them further apart. I'm fine, shouted Long Chen. He quickly recovered. In truth, that attack had almost destroyed his body. Meng Qi, do you know the origins of that egg? How is it so powerful? Asked Long Chen. Those runes on top of it were nothing more than a passive defense, and yet their power was so immense. I've never seen or heard of such an egg. Those runes on top of it aren't recorded in any of the ancient scriptures that I've read. There wasn't even anything similar to them, said Meng Qi. Even though Meng Qi was a skilled beast tamer, she had never heard of anything like that giant egg. Let's go back. Long Chen once more descended into the water, slowly approaching the egg. This time he saw it clearly. It was truly like a giant mountain. If it weren't for the fact that it was round and smooth, Long Chen might suspect it really was a giant egg-sized mountain. Its body was like jade. The divine runes that had activated just now had calmed back down. The egg looked completely innocent again. Just now, the two of them had been fooled by its outer appearance, resulting in them almost being killed. This time, they were much more careful. They didn't touch it again, instead swimming below it. As they descended, they noticed 8 giant chains binding the egg. These 8 chains were 30 meters thick and had blood-colored runes on them. They emitted a fierce aura, like they were the bones of a devil. The 8 chains had astonishing blood-chi fluctuations coming from them. As for where the chains were coming from, there was no way to tell. They stretched far beyond where they could see. What is going on? Is it absorbing the egg's energy? Asked Long Chen. No, they're not absorbing the egg's energy. It's the egg that is absorbing some kind of mysterious bloodline energy from the 8 chains. These fluctuations are terrifying, said Meng Qi. Neither Long Chen nor Meng Qi could figure out what this egg was. They carefully went around the chains, continuing downward. Finally, they saw that beneath the egg was actually a giant altar. The altar was so large that the giant egg was resting on top of it steadily. As expected, none of this is natural. Long Chen and Meng Qi exchanged a glance. The yin-yang world was filled with oddities. Long Chen and Meng Qi already suspected that the nest they had come across had been arranged by someone to nourish those 3 things. Now there was this mysterious pool with a giant egg and altar within. Just who had created all this? And what was their goal? Suddenly, Long Chen thought of the mysterious coffin he had come across in Devil Spirit Mountain with Chang Hao and Bao Buping. Inside had been a sleeping man. There's an image here. Meng Qi's message interrupted Long Chen's thought process. Long Chen looked where Meng Qi was pointing. There was a giant carving on the lower portion of the altar. It was just that it was so big, and they were too close to see what it was. When they backed up a bit, they saw it was an image of a wolf. A giant wolf looked up at the stars in the quiet night. Behind it was a full moon. It was a very simple stone carving, but when he saw it, an image of that terrifying wolf appeared in Long Chen's mind. It was staring right at him. Careful! Long Chen suddenly heard Meng Qi shout into his ear, and he woke up from his stupor. He was shocked to find that at some point he had walked right over to the altar. There was a blood pool at the center of the altar, and this blood pool also had a band connecting it to the bottom of the egg. It looked almost like a baby's umbilical cord. It was a startling and frightening sight. This image doesn't have a formation on it, but just the will carved into it is able to make people form an urge to sacrifice themselves to the blood pool, said Meng Qi, her face pale. As a soul cultivator, Meng Qi had reacted quicker than Long Chen. The two of them had both been drawn over to the altar. Looking at the blood pool, they shivered. It seems this egg is the young of a wolf race. It's just that we don't know which race, said Meng Qi. Do wolves give birth to eggs? Long Chen looked at her, dumbfounded. Fool, what wolf would have eggs? Don't you see that umbilical cord leading from the blood pool to the egg? Clearly, the wolf fetus was inserted into the egg, while the blood pool should be the mother's blood. As for the 8 chains and the lake water, including the immortal mist at the top, they should all have been prepared to incubate this giant egg, said Meng Qi. Meng Qi, are you saying? Long Chen's eyes suddenly lit up. At the same time, Meng Qi's eyes also brightened. She knew what he was thinking. Will it work? Meng Qi knew that Long Chen wanted to merge Little Snow's crystal core into the egg so that Little Snow could seize the body of the embryo inside. I don't know either, but I want to try it. Long Chen couldn't suppress his own heartbeats. The life form inside this giant egg definitely had a terrifying origin. If Little Snow could take control of it, no one would be able to know just how powerful it would become. Meng Qi, I'll use my own essence blood to form a blood rune, but my control over my spiritual strength isn't tight enough. Help me out. The first thing we should do is take a look at what's inside. All right. Meng Qi nodded. Long Chen paused for a moment to calm himself down. Then the space between his eyebrows split open, and his purest essence blood condensed into a dragon-shaped rune. This rune contained his qi, his essence, and his spirit. Seeing him do this, Meng Qi formed consecutive hand seals, summoning one spiritual rune after another that stuck itself to the essence blood. Both of them were solemn. They didn't dare to be the slightest bit careless. The blood rune slowly entered the blood pool. When it approached the blood pool, as Long Chen had expected, a powerful suction force drew it in. A sharp pang of pain stabbed Long Chen's head, but he bore the pain with gritted teeth. His divine sense continued to stick to the blood rune. This was definitely extremely dangerous. Long Chen was having his own mind enter the blood pool, and through there enter the giant egg. His spiritual strength clung stubbornly to his essence blood. Suddenly, a fierce howl rang out in his mind, and his whole body shook. That was a howl that could shatter stars. It was something that should never exist in this world. Blood poured out of his nose, eyes, ears, and mouth. Long Chen. I'm fine. Continue. That terrifying howl seemed to want to shatter his soul. He knew that this was the leftover will of the owner of the essence blood in the pool. It wasn't targeting him, but just this leftover will was enough to almost shatter his soul. Long Chen was unable to imagine just what kind of existence the master of this pool had been. After a while, before his essence blood had even fully merged with the blood pool, he felt like his soul was being torn apart. However, he still persevered, protecting the blood rune. Meng Qi's own soul was hidden within it, but she couldn't expose herself. Long Chen wanted her to be in charge of examining the changes throughout this process, but his focus was on protecting the blood rune and making sure it didn't dissipate. Originally, Long Chen had been thinking of sneaking his blood rune into the cord connecting the blood pool to the egg, but it was actually automatically sucked over there. My essence blood contains the green dragon's essence blood. The blood pool isn't rejecting it, so as expected, this egg isn't here to just absorb spiritual qi from heaven and earth. It is absorbing other things as well. This had just been a guess, and if it hadn't succeeded, he would have thought of some other way to enter through the 8 chains, but it had actually succeeded. His essence blood slowly flowed through the cord. Through his essence blood, he sensed terrifying pressure from all directions that might shatter his essence blood. Fortunately, his spiritual strength was strong enough, or this drop of blood would have been crushed at the start. Eventually, his mind shook. He felt like his essence blood was being crushed. His expression changed, and his Yuan spirit appeared as he pushed his spiritual strength to his limit. All right, you can pull back your spiritual strength, shouted Meng Qi. But Long Chen immediately pulled back his spiritual strength, and in that instant, his blood rune exploded. Long Chen felt the world spinning around him. He almost fainted. Having pulled back his spiritual strength, he had lost his connection to his drop of essence blood. His face was a bit pale, and he had exhausted most of his spiritual strength. Long Chen summoned his divine ring, absorbing the endless energy within this lake water. He rapidly recovered his spiritual strength. "How was it? Did you see what was inside?" asked Long Chen urgently. "I saw it." Here. Meng Qi pressed a finger against his head, and a scene appeared in Long Chen's mind. While Long Chen had opened the path inside, it had been Meng Qi who had managed to see and record the situation inside. While he was confident in his powerful spiritual strength, his technique was not refined enough, and he couldn't be distracted by doing two things at once. Meng Qi's spiritual strength had been protected by Long Chen within the essence blood. Now, she allowed Long Chen to see what she had seen. It was a world of creation, like they really were inside an egg. There were even egg whites and egg yolk. However, the yolk contained a giant figure floating within it. There were 9 openings throughout the egg from which chains condensed of blood runes merged into the yolk. Long Chen felt like he could see blood flowing within the chains, entering the egg yolk. Of the 9 openings, 1 was connecting the egg to the blood pool, while the other 8 were the chains from the lake. The 9 openings had an unending flow of energy entering the yolk. The young was 3,000 meters long. It was still an embryo, looking like the young of a dog. It was furless and still not fully opaque, so it was possible to see its giant heart beating. Long Chen realized that the huge pressure he had felt squeezing his essence blood had actually been the result of this heartbeat. Other than the 9 main chains, countless translucent chains were sending surges of energy into its body. Although it wasn't even fully developed, the pressure it gave off made Long Chen's hair stand on end. Just what kind of existence is this? It's just an embryo, but the pressure it gives me is even greater than that of the 4 Grand Elders. Meng Qi removed her finger, and that image faded. The two of them exchanged a glance, both seeing each other's shock. The existence within this mysterious egg was absolutely terrifying. "Should we still continue?" asked Meng Qi. This egg probably related to heaven-shaking secrets. Who could predict the consequences of getting involved? "Yes, we're going through with it. The embryo still hasn't formed a consciousness, so Little Snow's soul should be able to easily take control," said Long Chen. This opportunity was not one he could pass up. "But before we go through with it, we need to rest. I used up a great deal of my spiritual strength and essence blood. We only have one chance to send Little Snow's crystal core in, so we have to be in peak condition. This time, there could be no mistakes. If Little Snow's crystal core was destroyed during the process, it would completely vanish from this world." 6 hours later, Long Chen and Meng Qi finally approached the egg again. Long Chen now gathered a fist-sized sphere of his essence blood. This was his purest essence blood, and taking out so much of it made him pale. Meng Qi looked at him with worry, but she didn't say anything. Opening her hand, a fiery red crystal core floated in front of Long Chen. This was Little Snow's crystal core. It had been nourished by the myriad spirit diagram this entire time. It was now much smaller than before but contained great power. Little Snow will have to take a risk this time. If it works, we'll never have to part again. Long Chen gently kissed Little Snow's crystal core. The crystal core brightened slightly as if responding to him. He knew that Little Snow's will and memories were locked within the crystal core. Back when the Eastern Wasteland Bell had sealed Little Snow's soul inside the crystal core, it had said that Little Snow's soul would enter a kind of hibernation. Little Snow will be able to fight alongside each other again soon. Long Chen hardened his heart. Wrapping the crystal core with his essence blood, he slowly sent it toward the blood pool. Meng Qi was also completely focused, her arms tightly wrapped around Long Chen's back. Her spiritual strength was helping Long Chen endure this difficult process. They didn't know if it was because of the previous experience, but the blood pool didn't reject his essence blood. It directly absorbed and channeled it into the egg. Once inside the egg, that terrifying heartbeat rang out once more. It was like divine thunder, shaking Long Chen's soul. Fortunately, he had Meng Qi helping him share the burden this time, so it wasn't as bad as before. He slowly sent Little Snow's crystal core over to the embryo. The closer it got, the more dangerous he felt that life form to be. Long Chen almost started to regret it. He felt that he had been too decisive this time. Could such a terrifying life form really be taken over by Little Snow? It felt like it could wipe away Little Snow's soul with a single thought. However, the arrow had been loosed from its bow now. There was no turning back now. Having his essence blood enter had been difficult, but pulling it out was impossible. Long Chen, Little Snow wouldn't be able to take over this kind of existence. It would be better to have Little Snow merge with it. That way, this pure soul will have Little Snow's memories, and there will be two souls inside it, but Little Snow's soul will have the dominant position. Little Snow will still be Little Snow, transmitted Meng Qi. We can only do this. Long Chen nodded. If Little Snow tried to take over, it would activate this life form's automatic self-protective measures. Little Snow would be destroyed. This life form soul was currently a blank piece of paper. Having Little Snow's soul merge with it was actually no different from taking over it. The main difference was just that it was safer. Little Snow's crystal core slowly landed where that life form's head was. The crystal core opened, and bursts of spiritual strength began to merge into that life form. Long Chen and Meng Qi's hearts tightened. If that life form reacted, Little Snow would be destroyed. Fortunately, the life form didn't react. It continued to lay there in slumber. Finally, 2 hours passed, and Little Snow's spiritual fluctuations vanished. The crystal core fractured and transformed into powder. The entire egg shook ever so slightly, and the life form also quivered for a moment. That embryonic dog actually opened its eyes. It made a sound. When Long Chen heard it, tears overflowed his eyes. That sound, those spiritual fluctuations, they were familiar. Little Snow had succeeded and was saying hello. However, just a short moment later, it couldn't keep its eyes open any longer. It once more fell into slumber. Its two claws seemed to wave as if it didn't want to sleep, but it couldn't resist the call of slumber. Success! Both Long Chen and Meng Qi opened their eyes, tears overflowing. They had succeeded. Little Snow would be revived. Meng Qi hugged Long Chen tightly. She knew this had been a constant scar in Long Chen's heart. For Long Chen, Little Snow had chosen to sacrifice itself by taking a curse. That had been Little Snow's choice. Unable to advance any further, Little Snow hadn't wanted to hold Long Chen back, so it had chosen a dignified way to die. Ever since Little Snow died, Long Chen was rarely happy. Although things had improved afterward, he had never forgotten about it. Now that Little Snow had merged with this life form, when it hatched, it would definitely be an incomparably terrifying existence. Most importantly, it would retain Little Snow's memories. Little Snow would still be Little Snow, Long Chen's closest companion. It took a long time for them to calm down from their joy. Long Chen slowly approached the egg. However, he couldn't get too close before runes suddenly appeared on the egg. This egg was protected. Fortunately, the life form inside it is also from a wolf race. Little Snow won't change too much, said Meng Qi. Yes. If it was a serpent or a centipede, I wouldn't let Little Snow merge with it. Long Chen also smiled. It felt like a curse had been lifted. He felt more relaxed than he had in a long time, and his smile was brighter. Long Chen suddenly felt filled with confidence toward the future. Now we should consider how to leave here, said Meng Qi. This was a no-flying zone, and their magical arts were suppressed. Leaving was definitely a big problem. It shouldn't be too difficult. If we follow one of the chains, perhaps we'll find a way out, said Long Chen. The two of them swam up. Long Chen had Meng Qi choose a chain. She was curious why Long Chen didn't pick one himself, but he merely said that his luck wasn't good. Following that chain, they finally reached the edge of the lake. Originally, Long Chen had been planning on taking some of the water here. This water was capable of cleansing the soul and tempering the body. Most importantly, it possessed a trace of divine energy. However, he decided against it. This water, this entire place, they were all prepared for the egg. If little Snow needed the water, it would be bad for him to take it. Following the chain, they found that it stabbed into the cliffside. The path came to an end. Alright, let's climb. Here, I'll carry you. Long Chen smiled and squatted. Meng Qi also smiled faintly. She wrapped her arms around Long Chen's neck tightly from behind. It seemed that it had been a long time since she had been in such intimate contact with Long Chen. Hold on tightly. Don't fall off. Long Chen took a deep breath. Using 2 sharp daggers, he repeatedly stabbed them into the cliffside and used them as handholds to climb up. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.